Chapter 758. Before, his cultivation and strength were insufficient, so he could only try his best to escape and protect himself. Now that he had enough strength to fight back, he naturally had to take revenge. Turning around, he saw that the remaining myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had already fled. Even Xiao Yang's back was the only thing left. He was smart enough to escape in the direction of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. It seemed that he knew that only by escaping back to the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union would he have a chance to survive. The first 2 times, Lu Yi had made such a choice when he was being hunted down. Now the tables had turned and Xiao Yang had made the same choice. It was a great irony. Lu Yi was not in a hurry to chase after him. Instead, he landed and collected his spoils of war. A Cloud River Realm cultivator's wealth was not small, especially when more than 100 Cloud River Realm cultivators had died at Lu Ye's hands. Even if he did not lack cultivation resources, he could not waste them like this. After a while, he soared into the sky again and chased after Xiao Yang. In the distance, Xiao Yang desperately fled, his heart full of sorrow. Previously in the restaurant, he had told Tan Xing that this might be their last chance because Lu Ye's strength had increased too quickly. If they did not succeed this time, they might not be Lu Ye's opponent the next time they met. But in fact, Lu Yi did not even give them this chance. The expected 7th order cultivator had turned into an 8th order cultivator. Moreover, the terrifying strength Lu Yi displayed made it difficult for him to look back. He had directly crushed them with absolute strength. Before this, he did not dare to believe that a Cloud River Realm cultivator could be so powerful. Tan Xing's aura behind him had disappeared. He knew in his heart that Tan Xing was dead. They had been together for so long, and they had been working together to kill Lu Yi. It was impossible to say that they had no friendship. This made him feel a sense of sadness. Search. He took a moment to look back and did not see Lu Ye's figure chasing after him. However, he did not let down his guard. He still surged his spirit energy and desperately fled. He made up his mind that if he could escape this time, he would immediately return to the 9 states. He was no longer Lu Ye's opponent at the Cloud River Realm. Only by breaking through to the True Lake Realm would he have a chance of defeating him. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, a sharp aura came from afar. Xiao Yang was shocked. He turned around and saw a red light in his field of vision. The red light wrapped a blurry yet familiar figure. It seemed to be unhurried, but in fact, it was rapidly approaching him. So fast. Xiao Yang gritted his teeth and continued to summon his strength. However, his current speed was already his limit and he could not go any faster. Fortunately, Heaven's Legacy City was already in front of him. After estimating the difference in speed between him and Lu Yi, and then looking at Heaven's Legacy City, Xiao Yang's heart shook. I have a chance. I have a chance to escape to the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union. A strong will to live that he had never felt before surged out from his heart, making him feel as if his blood and qi were burning. As they got closer to Qinji City, Xiao Yang was just about to let out a long sigh of relief when Lu Ye's indifferent voice came from behind him. That's right, when Lu Yi was in the 5th Order Cloud River Realm, his speed was almost on par with Yang Kai's. Now that he was in the 8th Order, in terms of flying speed alone, no one in the entire Cloud River battlefield would be faster than him. Only now did Xiao Yang understand that the speed Lu Yi had shown before was not his limit. But why was he chasing after him so leisurely? Xiao Yang suddenly understood. Lu Yi not only wanted to kill him, but also destroy his heart. He had deliberately let Xiao Yang see hope of escape, but at the most critical moment, he had personally extinguished this hope. How vicious. The aura locked onto Xiao Yang's body was becoming more and more solid. The aura belonging to Lu Yi was also getting closer and closer. Looking at the Heavenly Secret City in front of him, Xiao Yang knew that he could not escape. The look in his eyes suddenly became resolute. He turned around, his eyes filled with determination and ferocity as he charged at Lu Yi. Since he was doomed to not be able to escape, he would fight to the death. In the blink of an eye, the 2 figures collided. 2 long swords were unsheathed at the same time and slashed towards each other. Both sides' spirit chi exploded at the same time. Looking from afar, it was like 2 small suns had exploded in the sky. It was only a momentary stalemate, but one of them was sent flying. The spirit chi on his body became extremely dim, revealing Xiao Yang's battered figure. Previously, when he and the other myriad Demon Ridge cultivators besieged Lu Yi, he had fought with Lu Yi several times. However, he had suffered a big loss each time. It could be said that his strength had been damaged. In such a state, how could he gain any advantage in a head-on confrontation with Lu Yi? In mid-air, Xiao Yang tried his best to stabilize his body, but Lu Yi had already caught up with him. The long sword in his hand slashed towards his head again. Xiao Liang was worthy of being a core disciple of this generation of the Wild Blade sect. Even in such a disadvantageous situation, he still did not give up resisting. He raised the spirit artifact in his hand and accurately blocked Lu Ye's blow. However, before he could catch his breath, Lu Ye's other hand had already reached out and placed on his face. In the palm of his hand, a violent force suddenly erupted. Xiao Liang only felt as if he had been hit head-on. His already unstable body fell down uncontrollably like a meteorite crashing to the ground. With a bang, he landed 300 feet in front of the Jianghu city, directly smashing a large hole in the ground. For a moment he was dazzled and his body went limp. He did not know how many bones in his body were broken. At this time many cultivators were coming and going. When they saw the battle scene they all stopped to watch. "Louis!" someone exclaimed, recognizing Lu Ye's identity at a glance. Following this exclamation, more people saw Lu Ye's figure. At this time, people's hearts were restless and almost couldn't help but attack. However, very soon, another exclamation was heard. "Wild Blade Sect Xiao Liang?" The cultivator who recognized Xiao Liang's identity was filled with disbelief, almost thinking that he had recognized the wrong person. The Wild Blade Sect was a first-grade sect, and Xiao Liang was the leader of this generation. He had made a name for himself when he was in the Spirit Stream tier, and his reputation in the Cloud River battlefield was not small. It could be said that he was the strongest group of people in the Cloud River battlefield. There were definitely not many people in the Cloud River tier who could defeat him. But such a strong person was beaten like a dead dog at this moment? And the one who attacked was the famous Lu Yi? What was going on? In mid-air, Lu Yi held his saber and walked down step by step. It was as if there were layers of invisible stairs under his feet. His steps were calm, but his body was wrapped in a fierce aura. It was not that he did not see the Wanmo Ridge cultivators who were ready to attack him, but he did not care. Previously he could kill 200 enemies by himself. Naturally he could do the same now. Whoever dared to attack him would die. He did not mind killing in front of the Jianghu city. In the pit, Xiao Liang stood up shakily, and a mouthful of blood rushed to his heart. He could not suppress it and spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision blurred as he looked at the familiar yet strange figure standing in front of him. He knew that in this year-long battle with Lu Yi, he had completely lost. And the price of failure was extremely heavy. The Jianghu city was just 300 feet behind him, but he had no chance to break in. He spat out the blood in his mouth and held his saber with one hand. His weak aura was suddenly released, and his eyes were unresigned, but there was no regret. Memories flashed through his mind as if he had recalled something. Then Xiao Liang let out a deafening roar. Kill. Brazen and fearless, even if he was disabled, he took the initiative to launch the final attack. Because his life and death were not only related to himself, but also the honor of the Wild Blade sect. Lu Yi also rushed towards him. The two figures crossed each other. Lu Yi stood still, shook off the blood on his saber and put it back into its sheath. His faint voice sounded in Xiao Liang's ears, "Our grudge ends here." Xiao Liang stood still and his head drooped little by little. His vitality was quickly dissipating. The long saber was planted on the ground, supporting his body. The whole place was silent. All the cultivators who saw this scene, whether they were from the Haotian Alliance or the Wanmo Ridge, felt that it was incomprehensible and unbelievable. They did not see what happened before. But at the last moment, Xiao Liang of the Wild Blade sect was killed by Lu Yi, and they saw it clearly. The restless cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge could not help but extinguish the thoughts in their hearts. Lu Yi looked like he was covered in wounds and blood, but his aura was like the sun in the sky, making people unable to look at him directly. Everyone had a feeling that if they made a move at this time, they would be the one to die. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Yi walked towards the Jianghu city. Until his figure disappeared, no one dared to block his way. He did not collect any spoils of war because Xiao Liang did not have a storage bag. Lu Yi guessed that Xiao Liang had the void tattoo like him. For a cultivator with a background like Xiao Liang, there must be a spirit tattooist in the sect. It was not difficult for him to inscribe a void tattoo. Long after Lu Yi left, the cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge came forward to collect Xiao Liang's corpse. Half an hour later, a piece of shocking news quickly spread throughout the alliance. Xiao Liang of the Wild Blade sect, Tan Xing of the New Moon sect, Chu Yun and Zhou Pei of the Sacred Flame sect, led by more than 2 million cultivators of the Wanmo Ridge to hunt down Lu Yi. In the end, Lu Yi brazenly killed them all by himself. Chu Yun and Zhou Pei were killed on the spot, and the rest were less than 40%. Then Tan Xing was killed and Lu Yi chased Xiao Liang all the way to the Jianghu city. 300 feet outside the Qinji city, under everyone's gaze, he killed the core disciple of the Wild Blade sect on the spot. According to the memories of the surviving cultivators of the Myriad Demon Ridge, the strength that Lu Ye had displayed in this battle had already surpassed the level of the Cloud River tier. Added with the fact that his physique and life force were extremely powerful, all of the wounds that he had sustained were only superficial, and they didn't affect him in the slightest. This was why he had such an unbelievable battle record. Chapter 759. When the news spread, the entire Cloud River battlefield was in an uproar. There were believers and there were also those who didn't. No matter what, in the same realm. With one person's body. Against more than 200 people, the lone person had obtained a great victory. The side with more people had suffered heavy casualties. This matter was too far from the truth. Strange. Indeed, earlier 2 cultivators from Myriad Demon Ridge had died. There were rumors of Lu Ye's hand. But that time, Lu Ye had used some kind of highly poisonous substance. Seduso CC starter. In the end, it was equivalent to him secretly poisoning those earth cultivators. It didn't matter how strong or weak he was. The situation was completely different from this time. Even if one didn't experience it personally, just thinking about that one person's battle. Alone, the scene of fighting 200 enemies was enough to make one's blood boil. Not to mention, Lu Ye also killed those people who either died or fled. They fled. It could be foreseen that the aftermath of this matter would definitely still be in the Cloud River battlefield. It would ferment in the battlefield for a while, and the news would definitely spread to the 9 prefectures. At that time, the various Myriad Demon Ridge sects would probably be wary of Lu Ye. It would be even deeper. This matter was neither big nor small. After all, it was only a Cloud River realm. The impact of a matter at the realm level was limited. As time passed, it would slowly be forgotten and buried in the depths of memory. Somewhere. While the news outside was abuzz, Lu Ye had already brought along Hua Xiai and Yi Nong Hu all the way from Heaven's legacy city to Taimang, outside the mountain. A few months ago, many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators forced him. He had no choice but to take the initiative to leave the returned Sky Valley Spirit Land. At that time he was only a 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Who would have thought that in just a few months he was already a Cloud River Realm cultivator? An 8th-order Origin Realm Master had returned once again. And this time, even if the Yang Qi leaked out, no one would dare to cause trouble for him. As for the result of the previous battle, many people expressed their disbelief. They didn't dare to believe it, but Lu Ye's strength had been recognized. After all, killing Xiao Liang in front of Heaven's legacy city happened in front of everyone. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, it couldn't be faked. It could be said that this battle was enough for Lu Ye to ascend to the Cloud River realm. The strongest sequence of the realm. And he was only an 8th-order realm cultivator. He could still advance to the 9th level. Realm. Tentistiest. Back in the Spirit Stream battlefield, Lu Ye was a Heaven 8 cultivator. Fighting his way to the top of the Spirit Stream ranking, he looked down on everyone and was invincible. After advancing to Heavenly 9, he would be able to fight against Overlord-level demons without falling. Being at a disadvantage, he had single-handedly suppressed all the major sects in the core circle. Now, something similar might happen again. This made the cultivators of many sects in the Myriad Demons Ridge feel happy. Kyo's situation at the Cloud River battlefield was quite different from the situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield. There was no sect encampment in the city, so no matter how strong Lu Ye was, even if it was big, it would be difficult for it to cause any hindrance to the various sections. In the Taimang Mountains. Along the way they didn't see anything. He stopped. Soon they arrived at Huitian Valley. A familiar scene entered his eyes. The array had already been opened. A figure stood at the entrance of the valley and jumped around. It was because he had received the news in advance. Li Baxian, Feng Yuechan and Giant Armor. 4th senior brother, senior sister Feng Giant Armor were back. Yi cheered excitedly, obviously in a good mood. Li Baxian greeted him with a smile and looked him up and down. Yi, after making sure that he was intact, then nodded, "Little junior brother, you have received it." Bitter. His mood was a little complicated. His little junior brother was now an 8th order, and he had been painstakingly cultivating in the Spirit Land. Now he was only a 7th order. Not to mention that he was already one realm lower than Lu Ye in terms of cultivation. Only then. He had heard the news that Lu Ye had occupied 200 enemies by himself. He had heard it. He had also received confirmation from Lu Ye. Although he found it unbelievable since it came from Lu Ye's mouth, he naturally believed it. Of course. So he clearly realized that between himself and his little junior brother. Not to mention that there was a world of difference in strength. He was definitely no longer. He was no match for him. But no matter what, it was a good thing that little junior brother was strong. The vendor on the street took care of it. 5. He had Shire and himself in the outside stirring up wind and rain. The one who was most worried about him was probably 4th senior brother. However, sect master and 2nd senior sister were in the 9 regions. It was inconvenient for them to know what was happening on their side. But 4th senior brother was very clear about it. The saddest part was yes, facing Lu Ye's situation he couldn't help much. Last time he and Feng Yuechan left with the giant armor. They were going to meet up with Lu Yi outside the 100 Formation Pagoda, but they didn't manage to get up. In the end it was Hua Xiai who put in a lot of effort to bring Lu Yi out. He came out. Li Baxin shook his head slowly and patted Lu Yi on the shoulder. As long as he was safe. Then he looked at Hua Xiai and nodded. Junior sister Hua Xiai has also worked hard. To be honest, he still didn't understand until now. Hua Xi was a medical cultivator. How did she manage to catch so many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators? She was the one who brought Lu Yi out of danger. Moreover, she had just advanced to the Cloud River realm. His junior brother and junior sister didn't seem to be Qi Zhongji. Thanks. This made him feel gratified, but he also couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. Illusion. Compared to the vast majority of Cloud River realm cultivators, his and Feng Yuechan's cultivation speed was already fast enough. Mi had been in the Cloud River battlefield for less than 2 years. 99% of cultivators couldn't reach his current cultivation level. Here. And because he had more than 10 years of Spirit Stream Realm Foundation, his true strength was definitely not comparable to an ordinary 7th Order cultivator. At the very least, Li Baxin was confident that he could fight against Xia. Good but undefeated. One had to know that sword cultivators could kill enemies above their level, not to mention moreover he was Li Baxin. The pride in his heart made him understand that he had to speed up his cultivation efficiency. Otherwise, in the future, if he was left behind by his junior brothers and sisters, he wouldn't even be able to see their shadows. If he couldn't see them, he would lose face. While they were talking, Hoopa had already jumped onto Giant Armor's head. On the bag he lay down steadily. Even though they hadn't seen each other for a long time, Hoopa and Giant Armor's feelings had never changed. Following Lu Yi, his master, outside. The adventures on the surface were brilliant, but by Giant Armor's side, he had was a unique feeling of comfort. Giant Armor smiled at Yuji. A ray of white light shone brightly under the old light. It was shining brightly. After not seeing him for a few months, this guy seemed to have become much stronger. Hidden in an An's body was an amazing vitality and eruption. Force. Lu Yi stood in front of him. It was as high as his chest. He gently hammered his chest, making a sound of metal being smashed. The sound of collision. Lu Yi was very doubtful. Even with his current strength, if he didn't activate the sharp spirit tattoo, could he break through this guy's physical defense? In terms of physical strength alone, Lu Yi felt that there were 3 of him. Together they might not be able to compare to the Giant Armor. However, to a certain extent, the creator was still male. It was flat. Giant Armor was talented, but there were still some problems with his intelligence. To ordinary people, his intelligence was undoubtedly not high. He was not a fool, but his thinking was relatively simple. After a long separation they were lively and chatting and laughing. In the end, Feng Yuechan couldn't help but sigh. Are you going to stand outside and talk like this? Li Baxin slapped his head and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's go back first. Speak. Everyone then headed inside together. After entering the range of the formation, the beautiful scenery of Huitian Valley was immediately imprinted in their eyes. Sister Hua Xiai, isn't this place beautiful? Yi moved closer to Hua Xiai. While showing off, when Lu Yi chose this place to bury the spring spirit, she was happy for a long time. Girls always like beautiful things. Yi is the prettiest. Hua Xiai pinched Yi's face lovingly. Little face. Nong Yi was instantly overjoyed and held Hua Xi's arm. She acted coquettishly. Among the flowers and plants, giant wolves were resting. They slowly stood up and looked towards the crowd. One of them was a huge wolf. Its fur was snow-white, and its body was particularly tall. It was even more human-like. He nodded slightly at Lu Yi. This was the first time Hua Xiai had seen so many demon general-level beasts. She couldn't help but click her tongue in wonder. She couldn't understand why Li Baxin and the others were so. How could they coexist peacefully with such a pack of wolves? The wolves have helped us a lot. Previously, when we left the spirit land at that time, they were guarding the house and waiting for us to return. There were no signs of invasion here, Li Baxin said as he walked. But then again, the spirit land of Huitian Valley was Lu Ye's spirit land. Many people knew about this matter and no one was blind enough to do so. They dared to cause trouble. Even Xiao Liang and the others only dared to chase after Lu Yi. Why would they target the spirit land of Huitian Valley? Before Lu Yi left, he had left behind some harsh words. The number of lines in the group was much better. Post 10 sentences. He remembered that when he left, the wolf pack was only about 300. Looking around, it was obvious that there were more than 300. Li Baxin smiled and said, I don't know where the Wolf King came from. He would gather some of his clansmen back and slowly there would be more. Fortunately, these wolves would go out to hunt on their own, and they wouldn't do anything to disturb Baxin and the others. All they needed was a night with moonlight. At night, they would cultivate with the giant armor. Otherwise, just how to feed these beasts would be a big question. A problem. Now, Lu Ye's strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. His Dao attainments had also increased tremendously. In addition, there were so many demon wolves. In the entire Cloud River battlefield, other than the Qingji Business Alliance, there was probably only one side with Huitian Valley. The defense was the strongest. In the center of Huitian Valley, there were a few wooden houses scattered around. Lu Ye's house had naturally been preserved, and there was a new wooden house. The house was next to Lu Ye's. This is junior sister Hua Xi's house. Yuechan and I will fight together. I don't know if it suits junior sister's wishes. If it's not satisfied, junior sister, just say it. How could Hua Xi be dissatisfied? She could stay in the 10,000 Poisons forest. Staying in such a place for nearly a year was not good for her life. The requirements of the environment were not too high. Very good. Thank you, fourth senior brother and senior sister phone. Then you guys rest first. I'll prepare. I'll give it to you later. You guys welcome me? Li Baxin said with a smile. He had already taken out of his storage bag. He took out an apron and tied it around his waist. He looked like he was going to personally cook. The chef looked like he was going to do something. Such a big sword cultivator, but now he was acting like a chef. If Li Luxin's people were going to eat, Quan Zhu was going to eat. Surprise. But this was the other side of Li Baxin that no one knew. His cooking skills were actually quite good. Chapter 760. Return. Reunion. Joy. There was wine. Wild drinking. Tipsy. Under the moonlight, the few of them sat around a wooden table. The table was filled with delicacies that Li Baxin had meticulously cooked. The group chatted and laughed, toasting each other. Lu Ye's heart also calmed down. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was a sect encampment, a place where sect cultivators could feel a sense of belonging. The Cloud River battlefield was different. 90% of Cloud River tier cultivators did not have a fixed residence on the Cloud River battlefield. They wandered everywhere in search of opportunities that belonged to them. Although the number of spirit lands was not small, not everyone could obtain them. Huitian Valley spirit lands were created by Lu Yi single-handedly. It had resisted the invasion of many myriad demons ridge cultivators here. He had a sense of belonging to this place. He also had his fourth senior brother, Feng Yuechan giant armor, and the others with him. The outside world was exciting, but in the entire Cloud River battlefield, this was the place where he could stay. The moon was high in the sky. The bright moonlight poured down, covering the entire Huitian Valley with a layer of silver frost. Giant armor finished the wine in the jar and got up to walk to the side. The wolf pack gathered tightly under the lead of the Wolf King. Giant armor's huge and burly figure was particularly eye-catching even among the wolf pack. Looking around, it was as if he was the Wolf King walking alone and the wolf pack following him. He came to the place where he usually cultivated and got into that strange and unique posture. As he breathed, visible moonlight fell from the sky and was swallowed into his lungs. The howls of the wolves rose and fell one after another. Many of the demon wolves followed suit and bathed in the moonlight. As giant armor breathed, more and more moonlight gathered in Huitian Valley. It became denser and denser. The entire valley was covered in a hazy halo, as if it was in a sea of moonlight. No matter how many times I see it, I still find it incredible. Li Baxin sighed in amazement. He had never seen or heard of giant armor's unique cultivation method before. It did not seem to be a cultivation method but a kind of instinct, a kind of talent. He had tried to understand the mysteries of this cultivation method by giant armor's side before, but unfortunately, he did not gain anything. After these days, the wolf pack's overall strength had increased significantly with giant armor's cultivation. Without paying any more attention to giant armor, The two brothers continued to drink and chat until the sky was about to brighten. Only then did they return to their rooms to rest. It was rare that Lu Yi did not cultivate. Instead, she lay on her bed and had a good sleep. Ever since he left Huitian Valley the last time, he had been running around and fighting. After that, he entered the secret realm of the Soaring Dragon Realm. Even if he occasionally rested during this period, it was only to recover his physical strength and spirit. At this moment, using the hazy drunkenness, he finally completely relaxed. He slept all the way until evening. If it wasn't for Hoopa licking his face, he would have slept even longer. In a daze, he raised his hand to grab the amber and threw it to the side. He slowly sat up and felt his entire body relax. The exhaustion of the past few days was swept away, and his mind was unprecedentedly calm and clear. A person's mind was like a bowstring. If it had been bouncing around for too long, an appropriate amount of rest and adjustment could often bring about great satisfaction. Yi Huaxi and Feng Yuechan's soft laughter could be heard from outside the house. There was still some fragrance at the tip of his nose. It seemed that fourth senior brother had personally cooked again. He got up and pushed the door open. Sure enough, in front of the stove, Li Baxin was wearing an apron and busying himself. The three women were assisting on the side. "Morning," Lu Yi subconsciously greeted, causing everyone to be stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Lu Yi looked up at the sky and saw the shadow of the moon hanging high in the sky. It was obviously going to be dark soon. Not long after, everyone sat around the table again and tasted Li Baxin's cooking. However, this time they did not drink wine. Li Baxin only made some bland food. After all, cultivation was the most important task of a cultivator. No one was willing to waste time. Wasting time at this time might be the source of disadvantage in future battles. They had already delayed for a day. After today, everyone would enter their own cultivation. During this time, Lu Yi thought of something and took out 2 jade slips from his storage space. He handed one to Li Baxin and the other to Feng Yuechan. "This is..." Li Baxin looked at Lu Yi in confusion. "A sword art," Lu Yi casually explained. In the Dragon Soaring Realm's secret realm, the one who left the deepest impression on him was not the bald monk with a strong physique and vigorous vitality from the Vajra Temple, nor was it the magic cultivators of the Imperial Heavenly Sect who were proficient in all kinds of mysterious techniques. It was the sword cultivators of the Howran Academy, especially the sword art. Lu Yi did not understand the way of sword cultivation, but this did not prevent him from seeing that it was an extremely profound sword art. He casually mentioned it in front of Yuan Changsuan that day, and Yuan Changsuan quickly sent the rubbing of the sword art over. In normal times, it was naturally impossible for such a top force to impart to outsiders, not to mention sending a rubbing for others to study. However, at that time, the Dragon Soaring Realm was on the verge of destruction. Lu Yi was also recognized as the savior of the world. Not to mention the sword art, even if Lu Yi asked to be the dean of the Howran Academy, Yuan Changsuan would probably welcome him and abdicate. Compared to the survival of an entire domain, what was a single sword technique worth? Not only did Yuan Changsuan send over the sword art, but the Imperial Heavenly Sect also sent over many secret techniques. The Vajra Temple also sent over secret techniques to temper one's physique. Li Baxin was born in the Jade Blood Sect and later joined the Pill Heart Sect. However, the Pill Heart Sect was not a sword cultivation sect. Although he had cultivated in the North Profound Sword Sect for a period of time, it was only as a normal exchange between cultivators of different sections. No matter how much the Sword Master of the North Profound Sword Sect appreciated him, he was not a disciple of the North Profound Sword Sect. The Sword Master could not teach him too much core knowledge. Li Baxin was born to be a sword cultivator who was famous for killing. If he could stay in the North Profound Sword Sect, his achievements would definitely be much higher than what he was now. The Sword Master of the North Profound Sword Sect had personally visited the Pill Heart Sect and expressed that he wanted to take Li Baxin as his disciple. Unfortunately, a despicable person interfered and did not get what he wanted. After that, Li Baxin's spirit acupoints were destroyed and he was stuck in the spirit stream realm for more than 10 years. Now that he had accumulated enough, his cultivation improved rapidly. However, he was not much better off than Lu Yi on the path of sword cultivation. He was basically fumbling his way forward. The book Sword Mantra was a timely help to him at this moment. Its usefulness was far greater than Lu Yi had imagined. Therefore, when Li Baxin picked up the jade slip and immersed himself in it, he was instantly immersed in it and could not extricate himself. Feng Yuechan also picked up the jade slip in front of her. After checking it, she found that it was full of records of many mysterious secret techniques. She also read it with great interest. In the Pilheart sect, her status was much higher than Li Baxian's. After all, her birth mother was a vice-sect master of the Pilheart sect. However, the Pilheart sect only rose to prominence a few decades ago. Its foundation was not strong and could not be compared to those large sects with long histories. The things passed down by the Imperial Heavenly sect were naturally stronger than the Pilheart sect. The things recorded in the Jade Slip were undoubtedly very attractive to her. Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan were immersed in the Jade Slip and could not extricate themselves. Lu Yi did not disturb them and just ate by himself. After a long while, Li Baxian let out a long breath and came back to his senses. He looked at Lu Yi and said, "Little junior brother, I won't say thanks to you. This sword art has helped senior brother a lot." Although he did not know where Lu Yi obtained this sword art, it was undoubtedly extremely precious. It must not have been easy for Lu Yi to obtain it. "It's good that it's useful to senior brother," Lu Yi smiled. After a while, Feng Yuechan also came back to her senses and thanked Lu Yi with a smile. "Senior sister Feng is too polite. We're family, there's no need for formalities," Lu Yi said casually. Feng Yuechan pondered for a moment before her eyes curved into crescents. She smiled even more happily and nodded repeatedly. "Little junior brother is right." With such a harvest, both Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan could not wait to comprehend the mysteries in the Jade Slip. Although the things inside could not help them improve their cultivation, they could increase their strength. Lu Yi saw this and said, "Fourth senior brother, senior sister Feng can go on ahead. I'll take care of things here later." Li Baxian nodded, "Then I'll leave it to you." He stood up and walked towards his room. After taking 2 steps he turned back and said, "Oh right, remember to sign up for the Cloud River contest. There are only a few days left." After Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan left, Lu Yi was confused. What's the Cloud River contest? Why did he need to sign up? He had never heard of this before. Wuxia explained, "It's a grand event operated by Heaven's Secrets." She slowly explained to Lu Yi. Lu Yi finally understood what the Cloud River contest was. On the Spirit Stream battlefield there was a Spirit Stream list. Countless Spirit Stream tier cultivators fought for a place on the list and obtained various rewards from Heaven's Secrets to strengthen their foundations. However, there was no such thing as a Cloud River list on the Cloud River battlefield. There was only the Cloud River contest that was held once every 5 years. All Cloud River tier cultivators who wanted to participate could sign up through the Heaven's Secrets pillar. When the time limit was up, they would fight with different opponents under the arrangements of Heaven's Secrets. After these battles, the top 100 strongest cultivators would be determined. They would be the so-called Cloud River Top 100, similar to the Spirit Stream list. And these 100 people would all be able to obtain rewards from Heaven's Secrets. The reward for first place is 20 golden spirit lots. So generous? Lu Yi was shocked. He had worked so hard in the mystery realm of the Dragon Soaring realm, and had almost lost his life. In the end, he had mobilized the power of the entire Dragon Soaring realm to lay down the Great Heaven Mending Formation. Only then did he obtain close to 20 golden spirit lots, and this was under the premise that the Battle Merit Pavilion had given him a 10% discount. The reward for first place in the Cloud River contest was actually more than what he had obtained in the Dragon Soaring realm. However, after thinking about it, it was not that strange. After all, this was a grand event that only happened once every 5 years. Moreover, it was a grand event that all Cloud River tier cultivators could participate in. At that time, there would be many capable cultivators and powerful cultivators. If one wanted to obtain first place in such a grand event, they would definitely have to risk their lives. 7017K. Chapter 761. Thinking about the hunting ground, the number 1 on the hunting list. As a reward, there were a total of 9 spiritual lots, plus 1 grade A spirit spring. The Cloud River battle for hegemony was such a grand event. It was reasonable for the hunting ground to have twice as many rewards. Moreover, Lu Ye's harvest in the Dragon Soaring realm. Actually, it could not be used as a standard for comparison. Under normal circumstances, a Cloud River cultivator, even after experiencing a secret realm, the greatest possibility was that he would only obtain less than 3 golden spiritual lots. In comparison, the prize of the Cloud River battle for hegemony was amazing enough. This kind of grand event that only happened once every 5 years. Basically, every Cloud River cultivator had the chance to participate. This time, some cultivators could even participate twice. As early as 2 months ago, the Heavenly Secret had revealed itself. Now, the registration for the Cloud River battle for hegemony had begun. Now there were only a few days left before it would end. If he missed the registration time, then no matter what he did, no matter what strength he had, he was not qualified to participate. He could only wait for the next time. 2 months ago, Lu Yi silently calculated. At that time he had just entered the not long after entering the Dragon Soaring Realm, he should be at the Tyrant Blade Mountain. He was cultivating the Tyrant Blade technique on the small island in the middle of the lake. After he returned from the Dragon Soaring Realm's secret realm, he stayed in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance for another month. During his cultivation, although Wuxia knew about the Cloud River battle for hegemony, he did not mention it for fear of disturbing him. So it was only today that he knew about the Cloud River battle. There was such a thing as a hegemony. Fortunately, there were still a few days left. He had missed it. And I heard that you can win the Cloud River battle for hegemony. Those who get into the top 10 will not only get the golden spiritual lot, but also get the favor of the heavenly secret. Wuxia said. Then he added. The favor of the heavenly secret was invisible and formless. The biggest benefit was that it allowed the cultivator's morale to increase. It was always successful. Lu Yi had also been blessed by the heavenly secret many times. Thinking about it carefully, was there really anything? He could not explain it clearly. After all, luck was this. This thing itself could not be seen or touched. Sometimes his luck was good, but sometimes his luck wasn't that good. But for ordinary cultivators, the favor of the heavenly secret, Gu, was undoubtedly a great temptation. No matter what, since we've met, we should participate. It's not a bad thing to do it once, not to mention the fate of heaven. Does Gu have any effect? Those golden soul lots prizes. Bosley was not just for show. Furthermore, with his current strength, now that he thought about it, his luck was still there. It was possible. Registration for the Cloud River contest began 2 months ago. At that time he was at the 6th level of the Cloud River realm. Although he wasn't weak, he was still able to match up to Yun He. Against a 9th order cultivator, he had no chance of winning. Now that he was an 8th order Cloud River realm cultivator, it was just the right time for him to compete. Domination is about to begin. Was this the will of heaven? Or was it a coincidence? The registration process was also very simple. The pillar can be completed. Wuxia didn't sign up either, so she and Lu Yi immediately. Together, they arrived in front of the spiritual land's Tianji pillar. Sure. In the unseen world, the heavenly mystery fell and a lot of information was revealed. What flowed in Lu Ye's heart was all about the struggle between the clouds and rivers. Tyrant had all sorts of rules. He understood, so he didn't ask any more questions. Note: for the present him, fate will meet. He believed that he could do his best for this grand occasion. He could get a pretty good result. There was no need to be too concerned. Lu Yi put away the bowls and chopsticks with Wuxia. Then he walked back to his room and sat down cross-legged. He swallowed a spirit pill and silently refined it. If it were anyone else, their cultivation would increase in a short period of time. If it was too fast, it would inevitably lead to an unstable foundation. It would take a long time to settle down and polish. But during the month when Lu Yi was in the Tianji Business Alliance, while he was improving his cultivation, he was also constantly entering the mirage to hone his body and familiarizing himself with the real growth of his strength. The tempering of life and death was far better than ordinary meditation, and polishing was much more efficient. So even if his strength increased rapidly, Lu Yi, there was no sign of his foundation being unstable. Histo be able to bring out all of his strength. This was also the reason why he could easily kill Xiaoliang. Otherwise he wouldn't be able to exert his strength. It was also useless. There were still a few days before the Cloud River contest. It was enough for him to peek into the origin of the Dragon Soaring Realm. An unintentional attempt earlier had caused him to lose control, accompanying Qin Zhao from a peculiar point of view. The Dragon Soaring Realm cultivator had walked his entire life and experienced many important deeds in his life. The essence of Qin Zhao's life of cultivation. If not for this, Lu Yi wouldn't have been able to use a secret technique like the God-beating whip. With this experience, how could Lu Yi not know that the origin of the Dragon Soaring Realm was awaiting to be developed? A huge treasure trove. Last time he was unaware. This time he was prepared. Lu Yi wanted to find a cultivator who used a saber in the Dragon Soaring Realm. The imprint left in the origin of the Dragon Soaring Realm. If he could do this, then his saber skills would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. His mind calmed down and soon he imprinted again. He illuminated the interior of the origin and entered the sky full of wonderful worlds of stars. Since ancient times, there had been cultivators who had lived in the Dragon Soaring Realm. There were more than hundreds of millions of cultivators. Almost every cultivator had left traces of their existence in the dragon soaring realm. Time passed, and future generations might not remember their existence. But the dragon soaring realm itself would not forget. Some traces would remain in the origin. The stronger the strength, the higher the achievements of the cultivator. The brighter the corresponding starlight and the darker the starlight. Faint. Since Lu Yi wanted to gain something, he naturally stared at the bright starlight. However, he was still dazzled for a moment. There were talents in every generation. This strange origin. In the inner world of the origin, the number of dim stars was uncountable. The number of bright stars was also difficult to calculate. How to choose was a problem. Fortunately, Lu Yi was prepared. His mind light. From this starlight, he felt a hint of a faint sharp aura. Although he could not determine that the cultivator represented by this starlight was a saber user, at least he could be sure that it was a weapon cultivator. Because relatively speaking, the one representing Qin Zhao, that bit of starlight seemed to be deeper. There was such an obvious sense of sharpness. His mind moved. It was the same feeling as last time. That bit of starlight was released infinitely in his mind. It was big and then it covered everything. The familiar sound of a baby crying rang out again. This was obviously the scene of a newborn. This time Lu Yi was mainly doing some tasting. Trying. He was judging the cultivation through the aura of the starlight. At the same time, he wanted to try whether he could control the starlight in such a scene, to control the passage of time. In the end, he was actually borrowing the power of the dragon soaring realm. The origin of the dragon soaring realm was investigating the traces of those powerful cultivators. The traces left behind by the dragon soaring realm were then recreated. The cultivator's past experiences. Since it was an investigation, then he could naturally choose the time node instead of following it passively. The cultivator grew bit by bit. If he could do this, then in the future, this way of doing things would undoubtedly be much more efficient, because so that you can selectively see something of value. Scenes, excluding some meaningless scenes. Thinking like this, Lu Yi tried to do it come. Soon he had a clue. Perhaps it was because he had obtained the origin of the dragon soaring realm. It was not too difficult for him. With a thought, a wailing baby was born. Had already become a tall and straight youth. Different from Qin Zhao's merchant family background, the target of this investigation was born in a cultivation sect. In the sect, it could be said that the cultivation environment was unique. Under the effect of many spirit pills and miraculous medicines in the sect, he had laid a solid foundation since he was young. Time passed and the youth grew rapidly. As he grew day by day, Lu Yi seemed to be attached to him. After that, as he cultivated and fought together with him, he experienced a life and death battle, and quickly became stronger. The only thing that made Lu Yi depressed was that this time the target was not a saber user. This was a weapon cultivator who used a long spear. His clothes were as white as snow. The spear was like a dragon. He had made a name for himself in the dragon soaring realm. His great fame also attracted countless female cultivators to chase after him. There were groups of wives and concubines at home. Nothing could be perfect. Fortunately, whether it was using a saber or a spear, it was a weapon cultivator. Although Lu Yi was unable to improve himself because of this attainments in saber techniques, he also had a lot of insights. Experience. It was not without gain. Moreover, with such an experience if he picked up a spirit weapon like a long spear, he would definitely be able to show the appearance of being immersed in this path all year round. He could use Qin Zhao's original god-beating whip at any time. Was the same. But this time the target was not as good as Qin Zhao. He was lucky. And this time the target was ambushed by an enemy. He fought with his own strength and finally died of exhaustion. When he died, he was not even 100 years old. Was a pity? Following his death, Lu Ye's mind, he also withdrew from the world within the origin. A sense of exhaustion came over. It was not as bad as the last time. It was so serious, but it also made people extremely weak. How long has it been? Lu Yi asked. Yi, who was meditating at the side, said, "It's a long time. It's been half a day." Lu Yi nodded slightly. Most of the Cloud River battlefield. However, in the inner world of the origin, it had been 100 years. Of course, this 100 years was not a complete one. Instead, Lu Yi had spent it selectively. There were some important periods of time, but they were definitely not just big. Half a day. When his mind returned, Lu Yi could not help but he felt as if he had been separated from the world for a lifetime. He did not swallow the soul water to recover his body. After all, soul water was precious and was not in a hurry. If he could not waste it, he would not waste it. Moreover, his soul was strong and his mind was his recovery speed wasn't slow either. During the recovery period he could use it to inspect. His own harvest this time was also in one fell swoop. Both. A day later Lu Yi had completely recovered. Based on the calculation, there was about enough time for him to spy on it once. He immediately immersed his mind again and spied on the origin. Inside he searched for the bright starlight. Time passed in a flash and 3 days had passed. Lu Yi, who was recovering from his inspection, faintly felt. Suddenly he sensed something. For no reason he understood one thing. The Cloud River battle had begun. He got up and walked out of the room. He saw Li Ba, Immortal, Feng Yuechan, and even Huazi giant armor pushed at the same time. The scene at the door. The few of them looked at each other and headed in the same direction. They walked in the direction of the divine pillar. A moment later, everyone gathered around the divine pillar. At this moment there was a muffled thud. That sound was deafening. At this moment, the clouds above the entire Cloud River battlefield instantly disappeared. It dissipated into thin air. Chapter 762. Dong, dong, dong. The rhythmic muffled sounds continued to rise and fall, as if an invisible giant was beating heavy war drums above the 9 heavens. As the drums beat, Lu Yi felt the blood in his chest churning. He looked to the side. Whether it was Li Baxian, Feng Yuechan giant armor, or even Huazi the medical cultivator, their auras were fluctuating and their fighting spirit was high. Don't panic. It seems that before every Cloud River battle, there is such a phenomenon. This is the operation of the heavens to boost morale. It is used to stimulate fighting spirit. Li Baxian's voice sounded. Only then did Lu Yi relax his mind. Just now he was still thinking that something had happened. The drums sounded 18 times. Read after that, the sound of 3 long horns rang out leisurely. After the sound of the bugle horn, there seemed to be an army of thousands of men and horses coming through the air. The aura of iron and blood. It bathed the entire Cloud River battlefield in a somber atmosphere. Among them, Lu Ye's expression was strange. He didn't understand why the heavens of the 9 regions would do such a thing. What? After a while, the horn sound slowly disappeared. Above the sky, there seemed to be a giant roaring. Fight. 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 Even if Lu Ye's mind was tough, he was still excited by this set of flowers. His fighting spirit flared up, and he wished he could find an evenly matched opponent right now. He wanted to have a big fight with his opponent to relieve the tension in his heart. Then Lu Yi saw a layer of ripples on the pillar of heaven suddenly spread out. After that, it spread in all directions. As the ripples spread, first Li Baxian's figure suddenly disappeared, followed by giant armor, and then Huazi. Ci and Feng Yuechan disappeared almost at the same time. At the same time, the battlefield mark on the back of his hand was also slightly. As soon as it was hot, an inexplicable traction came and his vision blurred. When he came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a battle arena. In the arena. Before Lu Yi could familiarize himself with the scene in front of him, a roar sounded in his ears. There was a loud roar. Turning his head, he saw a stranger over there. A burly demon cultivator with bull horns was looking at him with red eyes. 2 substantial heat waves were spurting out of his nostrils. He held a spirit shield in one hand and an axe in the other, pointing at Lu Yi. Lu Yi, you over there, brat, come and die. Lu Yi glanced over and knew that this guy was also affected by the heavens. Huahua had been affected and was probably in the same state as him. It was the kind that wanted to find someone to fight. What else was there to say? Lu Yi took a step forward and rushed towards the bullhorn beast cultivator. The rear almost dragged the afterimage. Good timing. The demonic cultivator shouted and took heavy steps. Fa then walked towards Lu Yi. He was tall and sturdy and his steps were strange. In just a few steps, the 2 figures were right in front of each other. Lu Yi raised his blade and slashed out. The ox-horn demon cultivator stepped forward with his shield, and the axe in his other hand was about to strike. He waved his hand. He was overjoyed. In his first battle he met someone who was known for his stubbornness. The weapon cultivator was indeed lucky. Furthermore, this weapon cultivator seemed to have been completely destroyed. His fighting spirit had been aroused, and he had actually used a saber to hack at his shield. What was this? Unwise. There were many different factions among cultivators, and each of them had their own weaknesses. But generally speaking, body cultivators had a certain degree of restraint over weapon cultivators. Yes, because if a weapon cultivator wanted to kill an enemy, he had to get close to the enemy. With outstanding protection, it could naturally weaken the various methods of a soldier cultivator. Especially the spirit artifact shield in his hand, It was already a top-grade spirit artifact. It was at the level of a spirit artifact, and coupled with his 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivation. Although there was no chance for him to enter the top 100 of the Cloud River competition, he could still enter the top 3,000. There was still hope if he tried his best. Just as he was thinking this, a loud sound rang out. Asterisk boom. Asterisk the moment the saber and shield collided, a huge ripple visible to the naked eye appeared. The ripple spread out with a bang and collided with the barrier around the battle arena. The heavy air waves caused the light of the barrier to flicker. At the same time, the bullhorn beast cultivator felt a sense of powerlessness. A huge force of resistance came from above. As strong as his physique was, it actually hit him from above. He almost let the spirit artifact shield fly out of his hand. He staggered and half-knelt on the ground. His counterattack also came to an abrupt end. Moo! The endless fighting spirit in the beast cultivator's eyes was instantly replaced by surprise. There was only one thought surging in his mind. This guy, how could he be stronger than me? There was no time for him to ponder. The mountain saber in Lu Ye's hand had already gone wild. It hacked down like a storm. As a weapon cultivator, the best way to deal with a body cultivator was naturally to stay close to them and search for the weak spots of the body cultivator's defense. Instead of attacking the other party's spirit artifact shield for a while like him, he hacked wildly. However, Lu Ye's fighting spirit was boiling, and he urgently needed a battle to vent. The bullhorn body cultivator was out of luck. He didn't even see Lu Ye's face clearly. Under the storm-like attacks, he hid behind the spirit artifact shield. Behind him, as the loud sounds rang out, his body became shorter and shorter. In the end, he could only use his shoulder to support his big shield. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to hold on at all. On the big shield, spirit light flashed wildly. He watched helplessly as his spirit artifact disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. The speed of its light dimmed. The smugness from before had long disappeared, and his heart ached a few times. He was about to bleed. He had spent a lot of money on this top-grade shield. He had only found a custom-made artifact refiner from the sect to be able to push his own advantage to the limit, all for the sake of the Cloud River competition. But looking at the situation in front of him, if he continued to persevere, if he didn't die, this spirit artifact shield would probably be cut into pieces. Who was the other party? The bullhorned beast cultivator was filled with grief and indignation. Admit defeat. Even if he was unwilling, even if the enemy's appearance didn't even have time to see clearly, the bullhorned beast cultivator still roared angrily. If he didn't admit defeat now, it would be too late. It didn't matter if he lost this battle. As long as his spirit artifact wasn't broken, there would always be a chance. But if the spirit artifact was broken, then the disadvantage in the following battle would be great. The battle method of the Cloud River competition was similar to the battle of the Spirit Stream list. One could take the initiative to admit defeat. As soon as his voice fell, ripples spread out, and the figure of the bullhorn beast cultivator instantly disappeared. Lu Yi slashed down again, but it hit the air. He hurriedly withdrew his saber when it was only an inch away from the ground. A hollow voice sounded from an inexplicable place. Lu Yi of the Jade Blood Sect wins. As the voice fell, a gentle force wrapped around Lu Yi and sent him out of this place. When he came back to his senses, he had already returned to his original place, but there was no trace of anyone else. He thought that they should still be fighting. In the middle. Lu Yi didn't think much of it and checked the battle mark on his body. The mark still recorded all kinds of information about himself, but the number of battle points had changed a little. Lu Ye's original battle points were 3232. He remembered this number very clearly, but now it had become 3,287. There was an extra 55 battle points. And the base number of battle points for an 8th order Cloud River Realm cultivator was 55 battle points. This meant that in the arena of the Cloud River competition, defeating one's opponent would give one a corresponding number of battle points. Wuxia had told him this before. Checking now was just to confirm it. It was precisely because of this reason that every time the Cloud River competition began, almost all Cloud River Realm cultivators in the 9 states would participate, regardless of their cultivation level. Because there weren't many channels for Cloud River Realm cultivators to obtain battle points, who wouldn't be tempted by the opportunity to participate in the Cloud River competition. There was no need to be afraid of those with lower cultivation. There would always be those with lower cultivation. Even if one won the entire competition, they would still be able to obtain some benefits. Of course, for Lu Yi, who had seen great battles and easily obtained 200,000 to 300,000 battle points, 55 battle points was no longer enough. It didn't arouse his interest. There was an additional message in the imprint. It was just below the battle points information. Cloud River Competition Stage, dash. In the entire competition, the number of battle points obtained, the number of victories, and even the duration of the battle would be used as the criteria to determine the final ranking. And the one to judge all of this was naturally the high and mysterious Heaven's Secret. There was no suspense in winning the first battle. The battle intent in Lu Ye's heart was also greatly relieved. He raised his hand and pressed it on the Heaven's Secret pillar unhurriedly. His mind was connected, and after a moment of silence, ripples appeared on the Heaven's Secret pillar again. Lu Ye disappeared from the spot. The second battle had begun. The rules of the initial stage of the Cloud River competition were that cultivators could participate at any time within 7 days. If it was within their capabilities, they could participate in as many battles as possible to accumulate battle points. And the number of victories. However, the maximum was 100 battles. In other words, even if Lu Ye fought continuously without stopping, he could only fight 100 battles within 7 days. After 7 days, Heaven's Secret would select 3,000 people based on the cultivator's performance in the battles. Everyone outside of 3,000 would be eliminated. After that, the top 100 would be determined from these 3,000 people. The entire Cloud River competition would last for almost a month. During this period, not only were the Cloud River cultivators on the Cloud River battlefield immersed in the competition, but all the sects in the 9 states would also be paying attention, hoping that their disciples would obtain a good ranking and win glory for their sections. For some cultivators, this was undoubtedly a good opportunity to make a name for themselves. Since ancient times, the top 10 of every battle of the clouds and river had a promising future. Nowadays, almost all the Spirit Sea realm cultivators of the major sects had proven themselves in this grand event. For Lu Ye, the first battle was just a warm-up. However, after seeing his opponent for the second battle, Lu Ye didn't even have the mood to warm up. The cultivator opposite him seemed to be very nervous. He didn't look old and his cultivation wasn't high either, only at the 5th order. Facing such an opponent, Lu Ye was afraid that if he used too much strength, he would kill him before he could shout out the word, surrender. Moreover, he didn't know which camp his opponent belonged to, so he couldn't directly kill him. Lu Ye simply patted Hupo on his shoulder. Hooper understood and leapt down from Lu Ye's shoulder, roaring as he charged towards the 5th order cultivator to provoke him. The other party was obviously a little confused, but when he saw Lu Ye sitting down cross-legged, his face immediately turned black. Fellow Taoist, although your cultivation may be higher than mine, you don't have to look down on me like this, right? Lu Ye's posture clearly indicated that he wanted Hoopa to fight with him. Beat my pet first, then we'll talk. Lu Ye replied casually, then closed his eyes and began to meditate. There were still many gifts from the 100 Formation Tower in his mind that he hadn't digested yet, so this scattered time was just the right time to do this. Chapter 763. Hoopa rarely had the chance to fight head-on with his enemies. Usually, when Lu Ye was fighting, he would quietly crouch on Lu Ye's shoulder, allowing him to borrow strength. Now that he finally had an opportunity, he naturally cherished it. He didn't even reveal his true body, only fighting with his cat-sized body. He fought with ease. In the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, Lu Ye's cultivation had jumped from the 6th order to the 8th order, so how could Yi and Hoopa not grow? Hoopa could easily defeat a 5th order enemy even if he didn't use his full strength. The cultivator's mood gradually changed from initial anger to shock, then despair. After a few dozen breaths, he voluntarily admitted defeat. He couldn't even defeat a pet of his opponent, so there was no need to continue fighting. After he admitted defeat, his figure immediately disappeared. Lu Ye also left the arena and continued on to the next battle. And so, the cultivation of the enemies he encountered was uneven from the 1st order to the 9th order. Lu Ye didn't know what the principle of the teams was, but it was most likely a random choice. If the enemy's cultivation wasn't high, Lu Ye would let Hoopa fight. Only when the enemy was above the 7th order would he take the initiative to fight. There were also some battles that ended before they even started, because the opponent recognized Lu Ye at a glance. In front of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, Lu Ye killed Xiao Liang in front of everyone. Now he was recognized as the strongest cultivator in the Cloud River realm. How could ordinary cultivators have the heart to fight with him after recognizing him? Anyway, he had to fight a full 100 battles, so 1 or 2 losses wouldn't affect him much. Occasionally, when returning from the battle arena, he would meet 4th senior brother and the others, casually chatting for a while before starting the next battle. Lu Ye's efficiency was very high. It didn't take 7 days at all. On the second day he had already fought a full 100 battles, and the result was naturally 100 victories. He didn't accumulate much battle points, only 2 or 3,000. There wasn't much to do after that. He just had to wait a few days for the list of the top 3,000 to be released before starting the next round of battles. Lu Ye wanted to use this time to spy on the Soaring Dragon Realm source. Although a few days wasn't long, it was enough for him to do it 2 or 3 times. What if he was lucky enough to find a cultivator who used a saber? However, he suddenly thought of something else and waited in front of the Pillar of Heavenly Secrets. Not long after, the space beside him twisted and a figure appeared. It was Li Baxian. Li Baxian's progress was undoubtedly fast. Although he hadn't fought 100 battles yet, he had already fought 60 to 70. His foundation was solid. Previously, because he was from Alchemy Heart sect, he lacked the means to kill. Now that he had the calligraphy sword formula given to him by Lu Ye, he was very confident that he could break into the top 100. As for the top 10, it wasn't that Li Baxian was belittling himself, but he really didn't have much confidence. The great sects of the 9 states had produced many talented individuals. Li Baxian was amazing, but his cultivation was still lacking. He was only at the 7th Order Cloud River realm. Furthermore, many cultivators who had reached the 9th Order Cloud River realm deliberately chose not to break through to the True Lake realm in order to compete for supremacy in the Cloud River realm. Some people had been waiting for this event for 1 or 2 years. In these 1 or 2 years, their cultivation would not increase by much, but their foundation would improve. For people like them, although the reward of the Golden Spirit lot was important, the favor of the heavens was the most important. In order to fight for the top 10, they would definitely go all out. What's the matter, little junior brother? Li Baxian could tell at a glance that Lu Ye was deliberately waiting for him here. I want to return to the sect, Lu Ye said. At this time? Li Baxian pondered. Alright then, little junior brother can go by himself. The Cloud River battle would last for a month. After leaving the Cloud River battlefield, cultivators could only enter again after a month. If Lu Ye left now, he could return when the Cloud River battle ended. I will explain the situation to junior sister Wuxia and the others. Then I'll go now. Lu Ye left as soon as he said that. He raised his hand and pressed it on the Heaven's Fate pillar. With a thought, the surrounding scenery quickly distorted. The next moment he appeared in the Heaven's Fate Hall of the Blue Blood sect. He didn't immediately go to find the sect master or his second senior sister. Instead, he raised his hand and tapped on his battlefield imprint looking for one of the imprints. Soon he found it and sent a message. After waiting for a moment, the other party replied. See you at the old place. Lu Ye raised his eyebrows. This message seemed to have some meaning, especially since the person who sent it was a very charming woman. Without thinking too much, Lu Ye raised his hand again and pressed it on the Heaven's Fate pillar. His mind connected to the Heaven's Fate treasure vault. Spirit artifact upgrade. Immediately after, he appeared in a small, secluded space. In front of him was a stone platform. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Almost as soon as Lu Ye stepped in, a figure flashed in front of him. It was a woman who looked to be around 30 years old. Her skin was white and tender, and she wore a close-fitting floral dress that outlined her exquisite curves. Since they were old acquaintances, there was no need to talk nonsense. Lu Ye took the mountain pan saber from his waist and placed it on the stone platform in front of him. The reason why Lu Ye had hurriedly left the Cloud River battlefield and returned to the 9 states was because he wanted to use this time to upgrade his mountain pan saber. His cultivation had increased too quickly, and the mountain pan saber's quality couldn't keep up. Initially, the mountain pan saber was only a level 9 lower grade spirit artifact. Later on, it became a middle grade spirit artifact. Now it was a high grade spirit artifact. However, with his current strength, a high-grade spirit artifact wasn't enough to fully unleash his strength. Previously, when he fought against the 200 enemies of the 10,000 Demons Ridge, Lu Ye felt that even though he used 100% of his strength, he only managed to unleash 90% of his strength. This was the result of the spirit artifact's quality not being able to keep up with his cultivation. Furthermore, after such a long time, Lu Ye had fought with many enemies. No matter how sturdy the mountain pan saber was, there would always be some small scratches on it. However, if he didn't pay attention to them, it could affect the overall power of the mountain pan saber and affect the lifespan of this spirit artifact. The mountain pan saber's 2 upgrades were made by this woman who called herself Master Yu. Of course, Lu Ye could find someone else, but if it was someone else he wouldn't know how good their skills were. At the very least, Lu Yi wasn't worried about Master Yu's skills. Previously he had exchanged his battlefield imprint with her, so Lu Yi still wanted to find her to do this. However, this Master Yu's cultivation was definitely higher than the Cloud River tier. At the very least she was at the True Lake tier. It was very likely that she was at the Divine Ocean tier. If Lu Yi wanted to contact her, he could only send a message back to the 9 states. He wouldn't be able to contact her on the Cloud River battlefield. If it were any other cultivator, they wouldn't make any changes to their spirit artifact at such a crucial moment in the Cloud River battle. This was because it could affect their ability to unleash their strength. Every cultivator in the top 100 of the sword finger rankings would try their best to maintain their peak condition. However, Lu Yi did this. If others knew about this they would be shocked. In front of the stone platform, the woman looked Lu Yi up and down as if she wanted to see his face clearly. However, from the woman's perspective, Lu Yi was currently shrouded in a cloud of fog. Not to mention his face, even his body couldn't be seen clearly. This was a protective method of Tianji. It was convenient for both parties to conceal their identities. However, this kind of concealment was meaningless to Lu Yi, who had once been blessed by Tianji. In this place he seemed to have some special privileges that others didn't have. Thus, he could see the woman clearly. "Aren't you at the Cloud River tier?" the woman asked with a puzzled expression. Her voice was old. If someone who didn't know heard her, they would probably think that this was the voice of an old woman. "What's the problem? It seems that the Cloud River battle is now. Why aren't you participating? Why have you come to me to upgrade your spirit artifact?" Although her cultivation level was far superior to Yun He's, she had naturally heard of such a big event like the Cloud River battle. She had also participated in this grand event in the past. And the reason she could determine that Lu Yi was at the Cloud River tier was naturally because the Pan Mountain Saber was a high-grade spirit artifact. A cultivator who used a spirit artifact of this quality had to be at the Cloud River tier. Of course, Lu Yi wouldn't tell her that the first 100 battles were over. He only said calmly, "What? Do you have to investigate the background of others when doing business now?" "Ahem." The woman coughed softly. "That's not it. I was just asking casually. If you don't want to say, then don't say." She raised her hand and grabbed the Pan Mountain Saber in front of her. After unsheathing the saber, she nodded slightly. "Tell me your requirements." "Upgrade to the level of a magic tool. The other requirements are the same as before." A spirit artifact had a limit of 36 seals. Any higher and it would be the level of a magic tool. The woman's heart skipped a beat as she came to a sudden realization. No wonder this little brat didn't participate in the Cloud River battle. It turned out that he had already reached the True Lake tier. This was because magic tools could only be used by True Lake tier cultivators. Of course, some Cloud River tier 9th order cultivators with strong foundations could also use them, but the cost was also high. This saber is only a high-grade spirit artifact now. If you want to upgrade it to a magic tool surpassing the top grade level, ordinary people can't do it. She was obviously implying that she wasn't an ordinary person. She was also waiting for Lu Yi to ask her. But Lu Yi didn't have any intention of answering. He could only continue to say, "The materials required will not be too little, and those materials are not cheap. Name your price." Lu Yi interrupted her directly. After a few interactions, he could tell that whether this woman was at the True Lake tier or the Deity C tier, she was a pauper. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to accept his request to upgrade the Pan Mountain Saber from low-grade to mid-grade. Moreover, she didn't seem to want too many people to know about her identity as an artifact refiner. Otherwise, she could use her skills to accumulate wealth openly. Therefore, it didn't matter if the woman asked for a higher price. As long as it could satisfy his requirements, Lu Yi didn't care about the trivial merit points. He had more than 100,000 merit points. Even if he used them all up, he could still take some resources from the Sex Treasury and sell them to the Tianji Treasury. 30,000. The woman gritted her teeth and called out a price that she felt was quite high. After a few interactions, Lu Yi could see some of her background. How could she not see some of Lu Ye's background? No matter where this little brat came from, he didn't lack money. It wasn't easy for her to open her shop, so she naturally wanted to get as much as she could. 7,017K. Chapter 764. Too expensive. Lu Yi didn't know whether it was expensive or not, but it was definitely true. After that, they entered the familiar haggling process. Although he didn't lack merit points, he didn't want to squander them casually. After probing each other, The price was finally set at 23,000 merit points. Lu Yi raised his hand and the Heaven's secret contract appeared in his hand. He quickly drafted various terms and imprinted his own mark on it before handing it to the woman. The woman took it and imprinted her own mark. Thus, the Heaven's secret contract was completed. Within half a month I will contact little friend. Little friend, please wait for my good news. The woman said finally. Why is it taking so long? Last time it only took 3 days to upgrade the spirit artifact. Even if it takes longer this time, it shouldn't take half a month. This old master has other things to do recently. The woman explained casually. It was mainly because her cultivation had reached a critical juncture. If Lu Yi hadn't taken the initiative to contact her this time, she wouldn't have come out. Lu Yi nodded. He didn't care too much. Half a month was half a month. He immediately left the Heaven's secret treasury. When he came back to his senses he heard Yi and Shui Yuan talking. Shui Yuan had sensed Lu Ye's aura and ran over to investigate. Second senior sister. Lu Yi turned around and bowed respectfully. I haven't seen you for many days. Shui Yuan's aura seemed to have become a little more vigorous. Clearly her cultivation had improved. From this, it could be seen that her talent was also top-notch. When a cultivator reached the Spirit Sea realm, their cultivation would increase. It wasn't so easy. There were many Spirit Sea realm cultivators in the 9 provinces, but most of them were below the 5th order. Spirit Sea realm cultivators only accounted for about 30% of the total number. Looking at Shui Yuan's cultivation progress, her limit was obviously beyond the 5th order Spirit Sea realm. Why did you come back at this time? Although she was happy to see Lu Yi and Yi, this was a critical period in the Cloud River competition. Lu Yi running back at this time made her worried, thinking that Lu Yi had encountered some trouble. I was looking for Grandmaster Yu to upgrade my saber, Lu Yi explained. Shui Yuan knew that Lu Ye's mountain plate saber had always been upgraded by Grandmaster Yu. After learning that there was no accident, Shui Yuan was relieved. Looking at Lu Yi, Shui Yuan sighed in her heart. Lu Yi had caused quite a commotion in the Cloudy River battlefield. The novice Renanian was not a good-for-nothing who only had cultivation but no corresponding strength. He felt gratified. After speaking with Shui Yuan for a while, Lu Yi brought Yi to pay respects to the sect master. The old man was still the same as before. He was full of energy and didn't give too many profound teachings. He only asked Lu Yi and Yi about some of the interesting things that happened outside, laughing from time to time. The headmaster was undoubtedly very satisfied with Lu Yi, a disciple he had practically picked up. Lu Ye's contribution to Blue Blood Sect's current prosperity could not go unnoticed. If Lu Yi had not left his name in Blue Blood Sect would have been removed from the sect by the heavens during the sect ranking ceremony a few years ago. A moment later Lu Yi left, leaving Yi behind. Lu Yi was just a disciple of the Blue Blood Sect, but Yi could be said to be the sect master's personal disciple in name. Almost all of her spirit techniques had been personally taught to her by the sect master. It was rare for them to meet, so naturally he wanted to test Yi's progress on the Tao of spirit techniques and then teach her some more profound things. An enticing fragrance wafted out of Shou Jingfeng's small kitchen. Shui Yuan was preparing food and Lu Yi walked in to help her. The two of them chatted casually and happily. Although there were many disciples in Blue Blood Sect now, there were still not many people in the sect. Occasionally, a disciple would return from the Spirit Stream battlefield, but they would all leave in a hurry. The main reason was that the cultivation of the disciples was not high, and most of them were cultivating at the Spirit Stream battlefield. Lu Yi and a few other Cloud River tier cultivators also stayed at the Cloud River battlefield all year round. In this regard, Blue Blood Sect could not compare to other well-developed sections. However, time would always change everything. One day, when the cultivation of the disciples in the sect gradually increased, the hundreds of spirit mountains would also become lively. Lu Yi was looking forward to that day. I heard from Yi that your 4th senior brother is also cultivating with you now? At the dining table, Shui Yuan said casually as she served Lu Yi food. When you go back, tell him to drink less and don't learn from the Beishin Swordmaster. It was the first time Lu Yi heard that 4th senior brother's drinking was influenced by the Beishin Swordmaster. Ever since Jean Cloud River, 4th senior brother has not drunk much. 2nd senior sister, don't worry. Previously, Li Bashin's spirit cavities were broken and he was depressed. He could not improve his cultivation, so he drank to drown his sorrows. However, after his spirit cavities were repaired and he advanced to the Cloud River tier, he really did not drink much. At the very least, Lu Yi had only seen him drink once on the Cloud River battlefield. It was when he brought Wuxia back a few days ago, and fourth senior brother gave him a welcome dinner. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi bid farewell to Shui Yuan and rushed to Bright Heart Peak to visit Madame Yun. He was not considered a disciple of the sect master, but he could be considered a disciple of Madame Yun. Although he had a divine item like the talent tree, his foundation in the Tao of spirit patterns was taught by Madame Yun personally. Along the way he went to Moon Lake to catch a few fish as a gift. Madame Yun was still the same as before, gentle as jade. Now that Lu Yi had a high attainment in the Tao of spirit patterns, Madame Yun no longer needed to teach Lu Yi in detail like in the early days. Basically, Lu Yi raised some doubts in his heart, and Madame Yun answered and dispelled them. As the saying goes, the master leads the way but the cultivation depends on the person. After a series of questions and answers, Lu Yi gained a lot. Madame Yun was naturally very satisfied with the performance of her disciple who did not have a title. She had seen countless people in her life, but she had never seen anyone with such high comprehension of the Tao of spirit patterns as Lu Yi. This was also the reason why she wanted to accept Lu Yi as her disciple. As a result, the sect master obstructed her, and she was so angry that she hit the sect master. In fact, the sect master did not want to ruin Lu Yi's future, because he knew that no matter what his attitude was, Madame Yun would teach Lu Yi carefully. He just wanted to use this method to pull in a strong support for the Jade Blood sect. It would be best if Madame Yun publicly became an elder or vice sect master of the Jade Blood sect. In this way, Lu Yi would be justified in becoming Madame Yun's disciple. Moreover, Madame Yun was a famous spirit pattern master in the 9 provinces. With this layer of protection, Lu Yi would have a backer when he went out in the future. He himself was not good as he had too many enemies. If he relied on him he would only die faster. In the end he did not get what he wanted and he was beaten for nothing. Since then, Madame Yun did not mention the matter of accepting a disciple, but her teaching of Lu Yi remained the same from beginning to end. Many thanks for Master's guidance. Lu Yi got up and bowed respectfully to Madame Yun. Madame Yun was slightly stunned for a moment but then she smiled. What did you call me? Master. Although they were not master and disciple in name, they were master and disciple in reality. If he kept calling her Madame Yun it would seem distant. Therefore Lu Yi was very willing to call him master. Madame Yun smiled even more happily and nodded repeatedly. Good. Her eyes were filled with kindness and love, and she felt that her relationship with Lu Yi had become much closer. That old fart won't let me take you as my disciple. I'd like to see if he can stop you from calling me master. Madame Yun suddenly became complacent again. She wished she could run to the right guarding peak right now and show off to the sect master. Lu Yi did not dare to speak. He just thought that since the two of them had feelings for each other and they were already so old, why were they quarreling? After all, she was a spirit sea realm cultivator. Although she was happy, Madame Yun quickly calmed down. She looked at Lu Yi and said, I know that you have made a name for yourself outside. Many people see you as a flash of light in their eyes because it's fast to discover. Master doesn't need you to restrain your edge. It's too late to restrain your edge. However, if one day you encounter a crisis that you can't resolve or an opponent that you can't match, you can try to mention my name. Maybe, just maybe, there will be a chance of survival. The one who would kill Lu Yi must be an expert of the myriad Devil Ridge. Madame Yun was famous in the past, and as the top spiritual tattooist in the 9 provinces, she had helped countless people. Many of them were the upper echelons of the current sections. Ordinary people were not willing to offend them. However, in such a situation, no one could say for sure whether it would be useful to mention her name. Therefore Madame Yun did not speak too confidently. Master, my name is Yun Xuechu. Disciple will remember. This was the first time Lu Yi had heard her name. Before he had always called her Madame Yun. Master, there's one more thing that I'd like to ask you about. Master, have you dabbled in the Yanshi Dao? Yun Xuechu's eyes flashed with surprise. Why do you say that? She remembered that she had never shown anything about the Yanshi Dao in front of Lu Yi. The maid on Master's Peak doesn't seem to be a living person? In the past, he had always felt that the maid he encountered every time he came here. The maid who came and sent him off was a little strange. It was just that his cultivation was not high enough and his vision was not enough, so he could not see anything. What? But this time, Lu Yi saw some details at a glance that he had not noticed before. Perhaps it was because he had once worn the dragon throne, so even if he had not come into contact with the Yanshi Dao, he could see some clues. That maid was not a living person at all. She was more like a Yanshi creation. It was just that she was so lifelike that she looked like a real person. Yun Xuechu was really surprised this time. She did not expect Lu Yi to have such good eyesight. With a thought, the maid walked over and stood beside Lu Yi. She suddenly said, "You think I'm not a living person?" Lu Yi was shocked and stared at the maid in a daze for a long time. Then he came to a realization. "Master." This maid had never spoken before. At first Lu Yi thought she was mute. But now, it seemed that it was not that she did not have the ability to speak, but that she needed someone to drive her. At this moment, it was Yun Xuechu's divine thought that was driving her. This maid was actually a creation of Yanshi. Chapter 765. Bright Heart Peak. Inside Yun Xuechu's bedchamber, Lu Yi circled around the maid and clicked his tongue in wonder. No matter how he looked at it, the maid in front of him was no different from a living person. There were almost no flaws. But soon Lu Yi saw that something was wrong. Because there was no movement of spiritual power or divine sense from Yun Xuechu. In other words, this maid was not being controlled by her. Now Lu Yi was a little confused. He could be sure that this maid was indeed Yanshi's creation. But, if there was no one controlling her, how could she move? How could she speak? "Master, what's going on?" Lu Yi looked at Yun Xuechu. Yun Xuechu smiled slightly and waved her hand, and the maid withdrew. "Spirit-splitting technique," Yun Xuechu explained. "Strictly speaking, Xiao Dai is my doppelganger." Doppelganger? Lu Yi was shocked. Although he was only in the Cloud River tier and was thousands of miles away from the Spirit Ocean, and didn't know anything about spirit-splitting or doppelganger, he could see some of the mysteries and knew that this was an extremely amazing secret technique. "I didn't tell you this before because I was afraid that you would bite off more than you can chew," Yun Xuechu said. Yun Xuechu said, "Presumably you have also noticed that in addition to the orthodox cultivation methods of the major sects in the 9 regions, there are also many side paths such as the array path, the pill path, the path of weapon refining, or the path of Yanshi. But no matter which one it is closely related to the spiritual inscriptions. Even the spells used by the sect of Dharma cultivators are inseparable from the spiritual inscriptions. These can actually be regarded as branches of the spiritual inscriptions." Lu Yi nodded. As a spirit tattooist, how could he not notice this? For all other paths, the path of spirit veins is the foundation. If the path of spirit veins is strong, then no matter what path one cultivates, one can achieve twice the results with half the effort. Just like how Lu Yi could advance by leaps and bounds in the path of formations. Of course, he had received a huge reward from the 2 times he had challenged the 100 formation pagoda, but it was also inseparable from his solid foundation. And all of these were benefits brought about by the path of spirit veins. Lu Yi had already cultivated the path of formations, so Yun Xuechu never mentioned other paths to him. In fact, if Lu Yi hadn't taken the initiative to ask, she wouldn't have told him about it. To outsiders, Yanshi's Tao seemed miraculous, but if one really wanted to cultivate it, they would need to spend a great deal of energy and wealth. For cultivators like Lu Yi, whose cultivation was not high and whose main mission was to raise their cultivation, it was not advisable for them to come into contact with it too much. Especially when Lu Yi cultivated the array Tao. "How did you know?" Yun Xuechu asked. Back then, when she settled down in Clear Heart Peak, Shui Yuan came to visit her a few times. However, she didn't discover any flaws. One must know that Shui Yuan was already in the true lake stage back then. She didn't think that Shui Yuan's eyesight would be inferior to Lu Ye's at that time. "Master, please take a look at this." Lu Yi took out the damaged dragon throne from his storage space. "This is..." Yun Xuechu's expression immediately became serious. He reached out to take the dragon throne and gently stroked it. Divine light surged in his eyes as he carefully examined it. After a long while, she revealed a shocked expression and raised her head to look at Lu Yi. Where did this thing come from? Although this Yanshi armor was damaged beyond recognition, she could still see its terrifying power when it was in perfect condition. This thing, let alone her, no one in the entire 9 prefectures could create it. Lu Yi briefly recounted his experience in the Soaring Dragon Realm and also the origin of the Dragon Throne. The reason why he asked Yun Xuechu about Yanshi was to ask her to help repair this Yanshi armor. Originally, he planned to wait until his cultivation was higher and personally go to the Qianji Pavilion to find the Spirit Sea Stage cultivator there. Although they didn't know each other and didn't have any friendship as a Yanshi, it was impossible to not be moved by such a divine object. If this Yanshi armor could be repaired, it would be of great benefit to the person who repaired it. But if his own master was also an outstanding Yanshi, why would he need to ask for help from an outsider? Knowing that the Dragon Throne had experienced such a magnificent battle, Yun Shuechu's eyes flashed with a clear look of heartache. If this thing was in perfect condition, she would be able to comprehend many mysteries from it. Even if it was damaged to this extent, its value was immeasurable. To her, this thing was simply an extremely precious gift. "Leave this thing with me, I will find a way to repair it," Yun Shuechu said, "but the person who created this thing has attainments in the Yanshi Dao that I can't compare to. I don't have absolute confidence, and even if it is repaired, it may not be comparable to the original power of the Yanshi armor." "This disciple understands." Lu Yi nodded. "Master, please do as you wish. Even if you can't repair it, it doesn't matter." As she spoke, she took out the huge dragon spine blade and placed it horizontally in the hall. "This thing is part of a set." The dragon spine blade was also damaged, its luster dim and its surface mottled. But even so, Yun Shuechu could still feel the monstrous ferocity hidden in it. Suddenly obtaining such a divine object, Yun Shuechu couldn't wait to immediately go into seclusion to comprehend its mysteries. Seeing this, Lu Yi naturally didn't want to disturb his master and respectfully left. He went to Yun Shuechu's library and returned the books that he had taken out last time. He also took out some books that he hadn't read before. Although there were many books here, Lu Yi had already read nearly half of them. He believed that it wouldn't be long before he finished reading all the books here. Xiao Dai sent him off again, but this time he didn't dare to be rude. Regardless of whether she was a clone or not, she was still his master. He respectfully left. Now that he had two more masters, Lu Ye's mood couldn't help but be subtle. After leaving the Clear Heart Peak, he didn't return to the main peak and went straight to the Green Bamboo Peak. This was Lu Ye's spiritual peak in the Jade Blood sect. Speaking of which, he was also the peak master of the Green Bamboo Peak. In other large sects, a peak master was qualified to accept disciples and teach them. The Jade Blood sect's main sect didn't have many people, and Lu Yi was the only one on the Green Bamboo Peak. Moreover, his cultivation was still low, so he naturally wouldn't accept disciples and teach them. His own Dao had just started, so how could he be qualified to teach others? He didn't see Yi, who was obviously still listening to the teachings of the sect master. Only Hu Pe, whose stomach was bulging from being fed by his second senior sister, was lying on the peak and sleeping. There were still a few days before the second round of the Cloud River battle. Lu Yi took pills and cultivated while immersing himself in looking at the source of the soaring dragon. Time passed. Sensing that it was about time, Lu Yi got up and rushed to the main peak. The Jade Blood sect's Tianji pillar was at the main peak, and participating in the Cloud River battle required the use of the Tianji pillar, so he had to go to the Tianji hall. Just as he moved, he saw a stream of light fly out from the Clear Heart Peak and go straight to the main peak. "Master?" Lu Yi was surprised. The figure that flew out from the Clear Heart Peak was Yun Shuechu. The other party also saw him and just nodded slightly at him, then flew over with a shocking aura. On the main peak, the sect master obviously sensed something and immediately went out to greet him, just in time to see Yun Shuechu's figure descending from the sky. Realizing that she didn't come with good intentions, the sect master asked in shock, "What's wrong? Come with me." Yun Shuechu looked like she couldn't be bothered to talk to him, and stretched out her slender hand, which instantly turned into a spirit energy hand, grabbing towards the sect master. Under this grab, it seemed like the entire world was going to be in her hand. The sect master's spirit energy and chi burst out, and an invisible wave of chi swept out, shattering the spirit energy hand that grabbed towards her. The sect master was stunned for a moment, and with an embarrassed expression he said, "I didn't do it on purpose." But then again, anyone who faced such a scene would involuntarily want to resist, not to mention he didn't even fight back. "Don't talk nonsense." Yun Shuechu's expression was completely different from the warm one she had when facing Lu Yi, and was full of coldness, once again reaching out to grab the sect master. A long sigh came out, and the sect master didn't resist this time. He could see that this woman was looking for him for something and not to fight. It was just that. In any case, he was a dignified headmaster of a sect. In front of the few disciples of his sect, he had been captured like a little chick. What kind of scandal was this? Also, what was this woman doing? With a face full of worry, he didn't dare to say more, let alone resist. The spirit energy hand grabbed him and quickly flew away, falling into the Clear Heart Peak. Lu Yi came to the main peak and heard Yi shouting in panic in front of Shui Yuan. "Second senior sister, it's not good, the sect master has been taken away." Shui Yuan sighed deeply, "No need to pay attention to it, go do your own thing." The sect was unfortunate. Luckily there weren't many people in the sect now, or else the old man's face would be completely lost. Yi looked at Lu Yi worriedly and Lu Yi comforted her, "It's fine." His own master had taken Yi's master away, and it was really not good to get involved in this matter, so he pretended not to see. After letting Yi return to Hu Po's body, Lu Yi stuffed Hu Po into the spirit beast pouch, and then came in front of the Tianji pillar. There was still no news of Master Yu, and the upgrade of the Pan Mountain Saber obviously hadn't ended. However, this was also within Lu Ye's expectations. It didn't affect him much. Checking his own battlefield imprint, there was another column of information below the number of victories in the Cloud River battle for supremacy. Ranking, top 3000. The 7 days of the initial stage of the Cloud River battle for supremacy had already ended. Among the countless Cloud River tier cultivators, the strongest 3000 were selected to continue to the next round of battles. This additional column of information undoubtedly meant that Lu Yi had obtained the qualification to enter the next round. He believed that fourth senior brother and the others should also have this qualification. Even if it was Hua Ci, Lu Yi wasn't worried. This woman was a medical cultivator on the surface, and her methods of using poison were undetectable. Moreover, her current cultivation wasn't low, and even if those ninth order cultivators met her, unless they finished the battle quickly, once she found an opportunity, they might not even know how they lost. The 3000 people had been selected, and the second round of battles was about to begin. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi took out a mask from his storage space and put it on his face. Previously, there were many people who recognized his identity, and took the initiative to admit defeat due to his reputation. Now that the 3000 people were selected, they would definitely have decent strength and wouldn't be as mixed as before. It could be said that these people would definitely give their all in the battles, all for the sake of obtaining a higher ranking. They were the most outstanding group of Cloud River tier cultivators of this generation. Lu Yi also wanted to test their methods and hide his face so that some of them wouldn't feel so much psychological pressure. 7017K. Chapter 766. This time Heaven's Secret didn't play any tricks. Lu Yi waited quietly for a moment until the mark on the back of his hand moved. Only then did he raise his hand and press it on the Heaven's Secret pillar. His vision blurred and he appeared in the battle arena. Looking up, he immediately saw a figure rushing into the distance, directly arriving at the edge of the battle arena. His reaction is fast. Furthermore, his opponent was clearly a spell cultivator by pulling away from the enemy as soon as the battle began. Lu Yi didn't even have time to look around before a bright spirit art flew towards him. This was the Battle of the Clouds and River, not a sparring match between cultivators. Regardless of whether they were from the same camp or not, they were all enemies here. There was no need to fight to the death, but since they were already in the top 3000, they would definitely give it their all in every battle to fight for a spot in the top 100. Cultivators who could rank in the top 3000 were indeed strong. The spirit energy fluctuations coming from his opponent were on the level of a Cloud River Realm 9th order. One had to know that Lu Yi had fought 100 battles before and had only met a few 8th order cultivators. He hadn't even met a single 9th order cultivator. But in this second round he met a 9th order cultivator in his first battle. His opponent's attack speed was very fast and his aura was solid. It was obvious that he had a strong foundation. Moreover, from the way he acted, he wasn't the kind of person who would underestimate his opponent. Halfway through his first spirit art, his opponent attacked with another spirit art. Then came a third and each spirit art was different. It was obvious that he wanted to take down Lu Yi in one fell swoop. Lu Yi raised his hand, spiritual energy surging from his palm, and the yin and yang energies quickly merged. A triangular spirit energy barrier quickly appeared. At a glance, it looked like he was holding a spirit energy shield in his hand. It was the defensive spirit rune. Many spirit arts collided with the defensive spirit rune, causing ripples to spread. The defensive spirit rune only dimmed slightly, but it wasn't damaged. Then Lu Ye's counterattack began. As spirit energy surged around his body, a lifelike fire dragon appeared, shaking its head and wagging its tail. It bombarded the opponent's position. After the fire dragon, there was a fire phoenix flapping its wings and a huge burning fireball that looked like a small sun. There were also many fierce spirit arts of different shapes. Search. The spell cultivator jumped in fright. Looking at the multitude of spells that covered the sky and covered the earth, how could he not know that he had encountered a formidable opponent? His opponent's casting speed was clearly faster than his own, and the power of his spell also seemed to be stronger than his own. His mouth was full of bitterness. He had never thought that he would encounter such an opponent in the first battle of the second round. It was really a bad start. What made it even more difficult for him to accept was that he clearly sensed that his opponent's cultivation was one level lower than his own. How could an 8th order cultivator be so strong? However, he didn't give up. Instead, he activated a spell technique to intercept Lu Ye's attack. For a moment, the battle arena was bustling with noise and excitement. The two people's techniques crisscrossed and collided in midair. Spiritual energy surged chaotically like a tsunami. Of all the cultivators from different sects, the battles between Dharma cultivators were the most dazzling and the most entertaining. In just 10 short breaths of time, this spell cultivator's casting speed was not as fast as Lu Ye's, and the spell's effectiveness was also not as good. It was not worth it even if his cultivation base was one level higher than Lu Ye's. The black shell was the source of the soaring dragon realm. It was attached to Za Sang and followed him through his life. The essence of Tai Sang's cultivation was all obtained by Lu Yi. It could be said that when he put down his mountain warning saber and activated his transcendental technique, he was an orthodox Dharma cultivator. Moreover, his attainments on the path of Dharma cultivators were very important, far surpassing his attainments in the saber technique. It was just that limited by his current cultivation, he couldn't use many of his techniques that reduced his power greatly. The biggest reason why he persisted in his saber technique and didn't change to the path of Dharma cultivators or other sects was that his saber technique and saber technique were extremely compatible with him. This was very important for a water warrior. Of course, at this moment, if he changed to Dharma cultivators or other spirit artifacts, he would certainly be able to display combat strength not inferior to when he was wielding a saber. However, in his lifetime he would never be able to surpass Sua Sua and the others. His attainments on the path of Dharma cultivators or other sects were all drawn from others in a very special way. The upper limit was already fixed. However, if he continued to persist in his saber technique, no one could say for sure what the future would hold. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to reach the heights of Sua Zhao and the others, but there was no way he could surpass them. Between a fixed future and an unknown future, Lu Yi chose the latter. But no matter what, at the current level of the Cloud River realm, no one could surpass Lu Ye's attainments in the Tao of Dharma cultivators. Even those earth cultivators who started on the path of Dharma cultivators couldn't surpass Lu Yi. This 9th order Dharma cultivator definitely came from some great sect. His strength wasn't inferior to Xiao Yang's at all. If he hadn't encountered Lu Yi, his chances of winning this battle would have been very high. However, facing Lu Ye's counterattack, he only lasted for 10 breaths. Seeing that his line of defense had been broken and a great crisis loomed over him, the Dharma cultivator didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly shouted, "I admit defeat." When he finished speaking, he had already disappeared from the battle stage. He was secretly shocked. Other than Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect, when had such a fierce person appeared in the Cloud River battlefield? He had originally been very confident in fighting for a place in the top 10, but after this battle, he couldn't help but feel a little frustrated. Borrowing the power of the 9 provinces, there were indeed a lot of talents. Although he was strong, he couldn't underestimate the heroes of the world. After the battle ended, Lu Yi also left the battle stage. Without delay, he raised his hand again and pressed on the Heaven's Fate pillar. But after waiting for a long time, there was still no response. He suddenly realized that the second round of battles was different from the first round. In the first round, almost all the Cloud River realm cultivators of the 9 provinces participated, so the base number was huge. So, it was easy for him to be matched with other opponents. But only 3,000 people participated in the second round, and these 3,000 people were either 8th order or 9th order cultivators. All of them were powerful, so the battle would definitely be in full swing. The outcome of the battle probably wouldn't be decided in a short time. He had ended the battle too quickly, so naturally no one could be matched with him. He wasn't in a hurry, so he sat cross-legged in front of the Heaven's Fate pillar and took out a book he had brought from his honored master. He read it while waiting. After about 2 hours, the battlefield mark suddenly showed a strange change. Lu Yi understood and pressed his hand on the Heaven's Fate pillar. In the next instant he appeared in the battle stage. After fighting one battle after another, he swept away all opponents. Whether it was 8th order or 9th order cultivators, basically no one could last 10 breaths against Lu Yi. He stood in the center of the battle stage, and his whole body was like a spell platform that didn't stop. All kinds of exquisite spell techniques were at his fingertips, and he often beat his opponents to the point that they had no choice but to admit defeat and withdraw before they could even figure out the situation. Gradually, a shocking piece of news spread in the circle of Cloud River realm cultivators. An 8th order cultivator had appeared out of nowhere, and his strength was so tyrannical that it made people's hair stand on end. Even those who were from first-grade sects and hadn't broken through to the true lake realm for 1 or 2 years in order to compete for supremacy in the Cloud River realm were beaten to a pulp by him, and they couldn't even fight back. No one knew what he looked like because according to some cultivators who had fought with him, this guy was wearing a mask that prevented others from seeing his true appearance. Most people didn't even see his figure before they were drowned in the light of endless spell techniques. With a Cloud River realm 8th order cultivation, his strength was unreasonably strong and he was wearing a mask. People couldn't help but think of a certain person. This was a person who had caused the Myriad Demon's Ridge to lose face time and again. However, the identity of this person did not match his identity. Everyone knew that this person was a weapon cultivator who used the saber. How could he be proficient in so many mysterious techniques? Soon new doubts arose. If this mystic cultivator who wore a mask to hide his head and tail met Wuxia, who knew who would be the stronger one? That would definitely be a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. After all, the strength that these two people had shown so far was already not something that ordinary Cloud River realm cultivators could contend against. It was hard to imagine what kind of scene it would be if they advanced to the 9th order Cloud River realm. Just as many rumors were spreading in the Cloud River battlefield, Wuxia was like a mountain in the battle stage, bombarding one spell technique after another. In the space where many spell techniques interweaved, a figure moved like lightning. He seemed to be in a difficult situation, but he was able to avoid most of the spell techniques. If he couldn't avoid them, he would use the long spear in his hand to break them. The battle stage was in full swing. Wuxia's original intention of wearing a mask was to not expose his identity and use it to fight against the many elites of the 9 states. He wanted to broaden his horizons and prove his strength. But he didn't expect that an 8th order cultivator wearing a mask would become famous by accident. Facing a strong enemy like him, he continued to fight. Naturally, no one dared to be careless. Many people came up and introduced themselves to ask for advice. This weapon cultivator called Feng Rulai was one of them. It had to be said that the 9 states Cloud River realm was indeed full of talents. Although Wuxia won most of his battles easily, there were a few people who made him think highly of them. This Feng Rulai was the strongest person he had met so far, even stronger than Xiaoliang. Wuxia knew that he should be one of the disciples of the big sects who had deliberately not advanced to the true lake realm because they were waiting for the Cloud River battle. People like them had the qualifications to advance to the true lake realm long ago. But in order to make a name for themselves in the Cloud River battle, to win glory for their sects, and to obtain the favor of heaven's secret, some waited for 1 or 2 years and some waited even longer. Although they couldn't improve their cultivation, their methods against their enemies were much richer than ordinary Cloud River realm cultivators. With Wuxia's technique, ordinary opponents couldn't last more than 10 breaths. But this Feng Rulai lasted more than 30 breaths. Although he was in a difficult situation, he made use of every opportunity to close the distance between them. Even if he was at an absolute disadvantage, he didn't have the slightest intention of giving up. From this, one could see the perseverance of this person. Only such a person could go further in the future. After another 10 breaths in the fierce battle, Feng Rulai found a good opportunity to resist one of Wuxia's spell techniques and break through many obstacles. A long spear like a dragon brazenly arrived in front of Wuxia. He had succeeded. Chapter 767. Feng Rulai was overjoyed. It didn't matter how high the spell cultivator's attainments in the art of spells were, or how exquisite the spells he could use were. If a weapon cultivator like him were to get close to him, he would definitely not end up well. He had risked his life to take a hit from the enemy just for this opportunity. He could win, he could definitely win. Boundless confidence surged in his heart. The spear he stabbed out was stronger than ever. This was the best spear he had ever used in his life. The spear was like a dragon and its power was like hell. No Cloud River tier cultivator could block his spear. A short while later, in the Tianji Hall of a first-rank sect in Dingzhou, Feng Rulai's figure suddenly appeared. Spiritual power surged around his body, and his face was pale. His eyes were filled with fear as if he had just escaped death. His boundless confidence from a moment ago had shattered and fallen to the dust. Recalling the scene before he admitted defeat, Feng Rulai was in disbelief. This was because he had used up all his strength and finally managed to get close to his opponent with great difficulty. Just as he was about to defeat his opponent actually calmly took out a long spear spirit artifact. He casually thrust out his spear. That spear not only broke through his attack, but also caused him to suddenly fall into a huge crisis. If he had not shouted the words, "Admit defeat," quickly, he would have been seriously injured if not dead. That seemingly casual but extremely stunning spear shocked him too much. When his opponent carved that spear, he seemed to see the carelessness of an adult teaching a child a lesson. "Martial nephew phone." A woman's voice came from the side. Unlike the Jade Blood sect, which had very few people, when the disciples of the large sects participated in the Cloud River battle, they would have their elders by the Heaven's Fate Pillar to protect them. Moreover, they would definitely be accompanied by a medical cultivator, because no one could guarantee that their disciples would not be injured when they returned. With a medical cultivator present, they could quickly heal. This woman was the most skilled medical cultivator in the sect. She was also a spirit ocean tier cultivator. "Are you injured?" the woman asked. Feng Ruli recovered from his shock and defeat. He looked at the woman with concern, shook his head and said, "Martial Uncle Nan, I'm fine." The woman's eyes flashed. "You met Luia?" Feng Ruli did not look like he was injured, but he was clearly unsettled, as if he had suffered a setback. There was only one possibility for such a situation. He had been defeated in the previous battle, and it was in a way that he could not accept. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to him. Looking at the current 9 regions, only Luia from the legend had such ability. Feng Ruli shook his head. His mind was already immersed in his opponent's spear. Even though he had returned to his sect, that boundlessly sharp spear intent seemed to have pierced through the void and followed him, causing his heart to feel cold. The woman comforted him, "A moment of strength is nothing. Above the Cloud River is the true lake, and above the true lake is the divine ocean. Back then it was the same as me. In this era, there were many people that were far more talented than me. But now, just how many of them managed to reach the divine sea realm? Martial nephew need not be angry." Discouraged, Feng Ruli calmed himself down and said seriously, "Thank you for your concern, Martial Uncle. I understand. It's just some setbacks. I can handle them." The woman revealed a gratified smile. "That's good. Martial Uncle, do you think there is a person who is walking the path of a weapon cultivator while walking the path of a Dharma cultivator? Moreover, they have both achieved something. There is no such thing as a line of division. Since ancient times, the cultivators of the 9 regions have not been restricted to sections. Take me for example. I am both a medical cultivator and a Dharma cultivator. Many times they complement each other. The same goes for Dharma cultivators and array cultivators. However, there is no compatibility between weapon cultivators and Dharma cultivators. If someone really does this, he will be cutting off his own path. Even if he has some small achievements now, it will scatter his energy. He will not be able to go far in the future unless he can wake up in time." Feng Ruli nodded. "I understand. My path will not stop at the Cloud River and the True Lake." He walked to the side and meditated to rest. Naturally, he would listen to his martial uncle's teachings. But on second thought, Luia seemed to be both a weapon cultivator and an array cultivator. According to his martial uncle, his future was bound to be bleak. For someone like him, who was a top-notch Dharma cultivator, his talent was extraordinary. His tenacity was also incomparable. So even if he lost a match, it did not affect him much. It was just that the spear that his opponent had suddenly thrust out had caused his mind to be somewhat shaken. The first round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy required 100 matches to be fought. The top 3,000 would be selected based on the cultivator's various performances during the battles. The time limit was 7 days. The second round also took 7 days, but it did not require 100 matches. Only 14 matches were needed. The frequency of the battles was not as high as the first round. After all, most cultivators needed to rest and recover after a battle. Every cultivator would try their best to maintain their peak state. This caused Lu Yi to spend almost 2 days to finish 13 matches. Most of the time he waited in front of the Tianji pillar. Now there was only one battle left. After this battle, the second round would be over. As for whether he could enter the top 100, there was no doubt. If he could not enter the top 100 with a perfect record, then the so-called fair and just Tianji pillar was nothing more than this. After waiting in front of the Tianji pillar for a long time, there was finally movement from the battlefield imprint. Lu Yi closed the book in his hand. Xiong Luodi took out a mask and put it on. He raised his hand and pressed it on the Tianji pillar to relax his mind. Once again he appeared on the familiar battle stage. Through the mask, Lu Yi raised his eyes and looked forward. What he saw caused him to be slightly startled. Since participating in the Cloud River battle for supremacy, he had encountered more than 100 opponents. However, the foundation of the 9 prefectures' cultivators was huge. So no matter where those opponents came from, Lu Yi did not know them. He did not expect to meet one here. Moreover, what made Lu Yi even more puzzled was, why would he meet her here? It did not make sense at all. She cast a slender figure, but the expression in her eyes was indifferent and calm, as if nothing could affect her. Boundless Island Lanzi. He had only met this woman twice. The first time was during the spiritual stream list battle. She came to challenge him and was defeated. The other time was in the secret realm of the Realm of Beasts. Under Daji's arrangement, she, Xia Qianshan, and Shun Kitten became his attendants. They followed him to the Two-World City to seek refuge. What left the deepest impression on Lu Yi was that this woman was very vigilant. The final battle in the Realm of Beasts had ended, and everyone was injured. Lu Yi wanted to find an opportunity to kill this woman, but she had already disappeared without a trace. On the contrary, after leaving the Realm of Beasts, she was waiting for him at the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union to share the profits from selling the Beast Seal method. If there was something good, she would appear. If there was danger, she would avoid it. Such a person's vigilance could not be low. Lu Yi was surprised to meet her in the second round of the Cloud River battle. Because those who could enter the second round were either Cloud River 8th Order or 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators, or people with strong foundations like Li Baxian and Feng Yu, or people with extraordinary talent like Zhu Jia. What made Lan Zi so special? Moreover, looking at her calm and composed demeanor, it seemed that she had not been injured at all throughout the battle. Lu Yi was sizing up Lan Zi and Lan Zi was also sizing him up. At first, it was just a casual glance and she did not take it to heart, but then a familiar throbbing feeling came from her heart. It was a warning sign. Mo Rant's expression became serious, and her delicate brows furrowed. Looking at Lu Ye's appearance, she immediately knew who she had met. It was actually the Dharma cultivator who had been in the limelight for the past 2 days. But, she had heard of this Dharma cultivator before and did not take it to heart. In the entire 9 states, the only Cloud River Realm cultivator that she valued was Lu Yi. The premise was that Lu Ye's strength was as terrifying as the rumors said. But she did not expect to meet another one here. Instinctively, she raised her hand and grabbed the 2 long sabers in front of her. The 2 long sabers were even longer than ordinary long sabers. If an ordinary woman wielded them, they would only appear to be neither fish nor fowl. However, when a tall person like her held them in her hands, they complemented each other. A powerful aura was like a sleeping beast, awakening from her body. Li could not believe his eyes. To verify the truth, he raised his hand and attacked her with a spell. Lan Zi's long sword slashed out and cut the spell away. At that moment, her spirit energy fluctuations were obvious. Cloud River Realm 9th Order. Lu Yi was shocked. How long had it been? How could this woman be a Cloud River Realm 9th Order? Compared to other cultivators, his cultivation progress was very fast. Since entering the Cloud River battlefield, he had reached the Cloud River Realm 8th Order in just over a year. But he did not expect Lan Zi to be even faster than him and reach the 9th Order. No wonder she appeared here. Lan Zi was also a master on the Spirit Stream list and had been rewarded by the heavens many times. Her foundation was solid, and now that her cultivation had caught up, it was normal for her to reach the top 3,000. In a daze, Lu Yi remembered a rumor. Those top sects actually had the ability to let their disciples grow quickly. Golden spirit sticks were difficult for ordinary cultivators to obtain, but for those big sects, it was not a problem. As long as the elders were willing to give them, the younger generation could easily obtain them. But for cultivators, the higher the cultivation, the better. The process of growth was also very important. Otherwise, if one's cultivation was not solid enough, it would be like building a castle in the air, destined to not go far. Therefore, even if those big sects had the ability to let their disciples quickly increase their cultivation, they would not do so under normal circumstances. Doing so would only spoil things by pulling up seedlings. But looking at the big picture, Lu Yi could see that Lan Zi's sword did not show any signs of her foundation being unstable. In other words, Boundless Island had raised her cultivation to the Cloud River Realm 9th Order, but she could control her strength perfectly. This was unbelievable. Chapter 768. On the battle stage, after splitting apart Lu Ye's spell, Lan Zi's figure leaned forward slightly, like a cheetah preparing to pounce on its prey. Her powerful aura was also rising rapidly. It was much more powerful than Feng Ruli, whom Lu Yi had encountered before. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. Up until now, he had encountered quite a number of Cloud River Ninth Order realm cultivators, and several of them had died at his hands. He had always thought that Xiao Liang's strength could basically represent the top Cloud River realm cultivators in the 9 states. However, after this round of Cloud River battle, he realized that he was the one who was ignorant and ill-informed. Xiao Liang was no doubt extraordinary, but there were still people stronger than him in this world. For example, Feng Ruli before and Lan Zi now, and as a weapon cultivator he was all too familiar with Lan Zi's current state. So, he raised his hand almost instinctively, and a fist-sized fireball flew towards Lan Zi. The lesser fireball technique could be said to be the simplest fire element spell, and it was also the first spell that fire element spell cultivators learned. Search. The fist-sized fireball was extremely fast, and it flew in front of Lan Zi almost as soon as it appeared. This was undoubtedly beyond Lan Zi's understanding. At this moment her aura was about to reach its peak. She could either dodge this spell or block it with her saber. But no matter which option she chose, it would affect the condensation of her aura. She didn't dare to ignore it because this simple little fireball actually contained a power that shocked even her. Saber light flashed and the fireball exploded, scattering sparks everywhere. Her aura had not reached its peak, but Lan Zi had no other choice. Her agile figure instantly pounced out, wrapped in cold killing intent. However, when he raised his eyes he was greatly shocked. In front of his field of vision, densely packed small fireballs blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they attacked him. It was as if it was raining fireballs. Behind the fireball rain, the spell cultivator wearing a mask was calm and composed. He raised his hand and more fireballs were born and attacked. On the battle stage, fireballs flew around as Lan Zi danced in the air. Her figure darted left and right, but she was unable to break through the line of defense formed by the spells. She was secretly shocked. This magic cultivator was ridiculously powerful. Although she had heard of this Dharma cultivator before, she really didn't take it to heart. This time, she wanted to find Lu Ye to avenge her humiliation. Women always held grudges. She was no match for Lu Yi in the competition for the Spirit Stream list. In the realm of beasts, Lu Yi had wanted to kill her. When she wasn't as strong as others, she could only avoid them and lay low. Now that she was strong enough, she naturally wasn't willing to be left out. However, he had never expected that he would not meet Lu Yi, but actually meet such a ridiculous magic cultivator. Also, this spell cultivator gave her a very strange feeling. His opponent's attainments in magic were obviously very high, but he only used a small fireball to fight with him. It was as if he was deliberately teasing him. What was worse was that there was nothing she could do about it. After struggling for a long time, she couldn't even move forward an inch. She kept bouncing around on the ground. It had to be said that female cultivators were much more beautiful than male cultivators. When Feng Ruli weaved in and out of the spells, it wasn't so beautiful. If one really wanted to compare, Feng Ruli's movements were like a wild boar charging, while Lan Zi was like a fairy dancing. Do you only know how to use small fireballs? After a full 30 breaths, Lan Zi couldn't take it anymore. No matter how good her temperament was, no matter how calm she usually was, her mind was about to explode at this moment. She was like a puppet in someone's hand. If the enemy wanted her to go east, she would go east, and if he wanted her to go west, she would go west. She already knew that she was no match for him, but she was unwilling to admit defeat just like that. What responded to her was a fireball that was bigger than a wash basin. Her opponent seemed to be responding to her. He not only knew small fireballs but also big fireballs. Lu Yi, don't go too far. Lan Zi was so angry that she almost vomited. Lu Yi was shocked. Play. I'm already like this and you still recognize me? It didn't make sense. There were so many enemies before but none of them recognized him. Everyone knew that Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect was a weapon cultivator who specialized in sabers. How could he use such a mysterious spell? But he didn't expect Lan Zi to see through his identity. In any case, he wasn't familiar with Lan Zi. They fought once on the Spirit Stream list, and in the realm of Beast's sealed world. They were together for a while, but that was a long time ago. What was certain was that Lan Zi didn't recognize him at first. Maybe she discovered something during the battle. That was indeed the case. Lan Zi didn't recognize him at first, but even if Lu Yi wore a mask to cover his appearance, his figure couldn't be changed. He was an 8th order cultivator with fire attribute spirit energy. His strength was ridiculously strong. With all these clues, Lan Zi had no choice but to come to a conclusion that she couldn't believe. This Fa Yao wearing a mask was Lu Yi. She didn't believe that a Cloud River Realm cultivator with the same cultivation as Lu Yi would appear in this world for no reason, and that even she was no match for him. Not to mention these days Lan Zi had been thinking about defeating Lu Yi all the time. She had already memorized his aura. Although they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and Lan Zi didn't recognize Lu Ye's aura at first, how could she not have noticed it when he was already trampled to this extent? It's really you. Lan Zi secretly gritted her teeth. Inexplicably she was relieved. Among all the Cloud River Realm cultivators in this world, only he could be stronger than her. The so-called Fa Yao wearing a mask was simply a myth. She wasn't that bad. Are you trying to scare me? Lu Ye's eyes darkened and his killing intent surged. He had wanted to kill this woman for a long time, but unfortunately he missed the opportunity in the realm of beast-sealed world. After that there was no news of her. Today she coincidentally appeared here and it was a chance. Just now he didn't think it was fun to mess with her. He was preparing to kill her. You want to kill me? Lan Zi stood in place and tilted her head to look at Lu Yi. She held two long sabers, one in front of her and the other behind her back. Even though she was talking to Lu Yi, she didn't let down her guard. Lu Yi could only sigh at this woman's ridiculously vigilant nature. We don't seem to have any deep grudges, right? The doubt on Lan Zi's delicate face was not fake. What a joke. There are so many cultivators from the myriad Demon's Ridge who want to kill me, but we don't have any deep grudges against each other. It's only right for us to fight to the death. Who told you that? Did anyone need to say that? In the cultivation world of the 9 states, once a cultivator began to cultivate, they would definitely be involved in the conflict between the two major factions. Even those itinerant cultivators couldn't stay out of it. What do you mean? Lu Yi frowned. Lan Zi shook her head. In the world, among my peers, the only one who catches my eye is you. I hope you can see the truth. What do you want me to see? The time isn't right yet. You'll naturally see it in the future. Don't come over. If I dare to come over, I dare to admit defeat and reveal your true identity. It was Lu Yi who took a small step forward, which made her wary. Lu Yi was a weapon cultivator who used a saber. If he could cultivate spells to such an extent, Lan Zi wasn't confident that she could block him. After this battle, she once again recognized Lu Ye's strength. Although she didn't know why Lu Yi was hiding and pretending to be a spell cultivator, Lan Zi felt that he must be plotting something. She felt that Lu Yi wouldn't be willing to expose this secret. She was secretly pleased. I can't beat you, but it's not like I didn't gain anything from getting a hold of your weakness. Just as she was thinking about this, Lu Yi had already charged toward her. The distance between them was rapidly closing. An extremely terrifying oppressive aura swept toward her like a tilting mountain. How can this be? Lan Zi's expression changed slightly. Without hesitation she shouted, I admit defeat. The last thing she saw was Lu Yi grabbing a long spear and stabbing at the place where she disappeared. The power of that spear shocked her. She thought that she had something on Lu Yi, but in reality, Lu Yi didn't care at all. He didn't use a saber because the Pan Mountain saber was in the process of upgrading. He wore a mask so that he could fight to his heart's content with the 9 states' elite cultivators and broaden his horizons. Lan Zi wanted to use this to threaten him, but it was useless. There were no more enemies in front of him. Lu Yi also left this space. The 14 battles were over. There were still 5 days before the end of the second round, so the results wouldn't be out yet. As for the battle merits, they weren't too many either. Lu Yi left the Jianghu Peak and returned to the Green Bamboo Peak. He cultivated while waiting. What he was most passionate about now was to see the origin of the dragon soaring realm in his mind and accompany the experts who had left their mark on the dragon soaring realm for the rest of their lives. His gains were huge. Each of these experts had their own uniqueness. Each of them had once stood at the peak of the dragon soaring realm. But the more he gained, the more Lu Yi realized one thing. His path was still the path of a weapon cultivator. He still had to use a saber. Only in this way could he have the chance to surpass his seniors. But what made him depressed was that he hadn't met a single weapon cultivator who used a saber even though he had seen them 7 or 8 times. He had even met a sword cultivator. As a result, he did not make much progress in his saber skills. 3 days passed in a flash. When Lu Yi returned from the origin of the dragon soaring realm, he suddenly sensed that there was a change in the battlefield imprint. The third round of the Battle of Clouds and River hadn't started yet. And this change seemed to be that someone was sending him a message. Lu Yi tried to recover his exhausted mind as he continued to investigate. Someone was indeed sending him a message. The upgrade of the Pan Mountain Saber was completed. Master Yu said that it would be done within half a month. It had only been 10 days. He had kept his promise. But after signing the Tianji contract, no matter how high her cultivation was, she wouldn't dare to go against the agreement. Otherwise, Tianji would punish her. Chapter 769. The exchange with Master Yu was smooth. Lu Yi obtained the Pan Shan Saber and Master Yu obtained the merit points. In front of the Heaven's Fate Pillar, Lu Yi examined the upgraded Pan Shan Saber. Its shape and length did not change at all, but the blade became darker, as if it could even swallow light. He flicked his finger across every corner of the blade, and all traces of the great battles that had taken place on the blade disappeared. It was as if the entire blade had been reborn. It did not appear sharp. The Pan Shan Saber had never won by its sharpness. The first impression it gave was that it was heavy. Holding the saber, Lu Yi was like a mountain that would not fall. He poured his spirit energy into the saber without any delay. The saber hummed as if it was an extension of his body. Lu Yi 10 Blackhound, 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 Black. Hound, Blackhound, 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 Black. Originally, the Pan Shan Saber was only a high-grade spirit artifact with 27 restrictions. But now, there were 72 restrictions on it. It could be considered the pinnacle of low-grade artifacts. The many restrictions were perfectly connected and complemented each other without any flaws. It could be seen that Master Yu's skill in artifact refining was very high. This was also Lu Ye's first artifact in his life. Spirit artifacts, magic artifacts, the more powerful the tie system inside M-City, the more powerful it would be when it was held, but correspondingly, it would be held Seduso CC first. The more powerful the artifact, the more energy it would consume. Cultivators below the true lake stage would not use artifacts. It was not that they could not afford it. The Heaven's Fate treasure house was there. As long as one had enough merit points, not to mention low-grade artifacts, even high-grade artifacts could be exchanged for. So what if one could afford it? With the Great Lake Stage's cultivation, they would not be able to use the artifact for long. Therefore, under normal circumstances, artifacts were basically exclusive to true lake stage cultivators. In theory, a low-grade artifact could accompany a true lake stage cultivator for a long time. Lu Yi was only at the 8th order Cloud River stage and it consumed a lot of energy to use the artifact. But compared to other cultivators, it was easy for him to recover. He also had a spirit storage ring as backup, so it was not a big problem. Moreover, at the Cloud River stage of the 9 states, it was unlikely that there would be an opponent that could force him into a long battle. As long as he could finish the battle in a short time, even if he had a top-grade artifact, it would not matter. After checking the Pan Shan Saber, Lu Yi confirmed that it met his expectations and even exceeded them. Lu Yi sheathed the saber and changed his weapon and imperial artifact to the level of artifacts. His soldiers, bandits, and imperial equipment were only at the level of mid-grade spiritual artifacts. They could not keep up with the increase in his cultivation level. He had not dealt with them before, mainly because as his cultivation level gradually increased, the frequency of him using imperial equipment was not high. For the majority of cultivators, the main purpose of imperial equipment was to increase one's mid-range killing ability. It could be considered a supplementary method but not the main one. After all, regardless of whether it was a weapon cultivator, body cultivator, or ghost cultivator, they all needed to engage in close combat in order to display their full strength. This was especially the case for Lu Yi, who had already attained a high level of attainment in the path of Dharma cultivation. Weapon manipulation was actually dispensable to him. There was no harm in being prepared. 3 magic artifact level imperial equipment and weapon caskets were not cheap. Each of them cost over 10,000 merit points. Lu Yi chose a weapon casket with 3 imperial equipment, which cost around 30,000 merit points. He was left with 80,000 merit points. He did not return to the Green Bamboo Peak. Instead, he sat cross-legged in the Tianji Hall. He cultivated and read while refining his weapons. Although he was keen on seeing the origin of the dragon soaring realm and peeking into the lives of those powerhouses who had stirred up a storm and absorbing the essence of their cultivation, there were some things that should not be rushed. He had a long way to go. He could take it slow. Just like that, a few more days passed. When the battlefield imprint on the back of his hand vibrated, Lu Yi knew that the results of the second round of the Cloud River battle were out. He checked his own imprint and saw new words in the last column. Cloud River Battle Ranking. Top 100. There was no specific ranking. His mind was immersed in this column. While he was taking a breath, he could immediately see familiar and unfamiliar names. There were a total of 100 names. These 100 people were the top 100 of the Cloud River Battle Ranking. Any cultivator who participated in the Cloud River Battle Ranking could check through their battlefield imprint. Lu Yi saw his name, Feng Ru Lai, Lanzi, Li Ba Xian, Feng Yu Maid, and even Giant Armor. Lu Yi was not surprised that Brainiac Xian and Feng Yu Chan could enter the top 100. These two had accumulated a strong foundation in the spirit stream realm. In the Immortal Valley, they had also received a baptism from the heavens, which made their foundation even stronger. Now, their cultivation was the only thing holding them back. It could even be said that they were born at the wrong time. If their current cultivation was not at the 7th order, but at the 8th order, Lu Yi felt that they could definitely enter the top 10. But whether they could enter the top 10, Lu Yi was not sure. As for Giant Armor, this silly man was talented. His physique was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Lu Yi could not imagine anyone in the Cloud River realm who could pose a threat to him. No matter how exquisite the enemy's techniques were, Giant Armor could only rely on his physique to break through them. In these 7 days, all the opponents who fought with him suffered unspeakably. Giant Armor did not pay much attention to his opponents. He just charged head-on and chased his opponents around the battlefield. Then he would exhaust his opponent's spirit chi and force them to admit defeat. It was reasonable that he did not see Huaxi's name. After all, her cultivation was too low. She didn't have a deep foundation like Li Baxian and Feng Yu, nor did she have Giant Armor's innate talent. Even though her methods of poisoning were unpredictable, the battle environment of the Cloud River contest was similar to the battle arena. It was very disadvantageous for her. In such an environment, she couldn't unleash her full strength. There were many capable people in the Cloud River realm of the 9 states. Once she encountered an opponent who could defeat her in a short time, she would definitely be defeated. There were only 5 people in the Spirit Stream returning Sky Valley, but they took up 4 spots in the top 100 of the Cloud River battle ranking. How shocking was that? Like the previous 2 rounds, whether it was the 3rd or 4th round, they lasted for 7 days. As such, this grand event lasted for close to a month. In the 1st and 2nd rounds, the Earth cultivators could not choose their opponents. They were all at the mercy of the heavens and were sent into the battle stage. On the battle stage, what kind of opponent they would encounter would depend on their luck. Of course, the heavens worked in such a way. Naturally, it would not be unfair. What kind of cultivator would encounter what kind of opponent? The cultivators themselves could not interfere, but the heavens had a reasonable arrangement. However, in the 3rd round, the cultivators had the chance to choose their opponents. In the 3rd round of the Cloud River battle ranking, in theory, every cultivator would have to fight 10 battles. Finally, based on the results of these 10 battles, their performance, and the cultivators' results in the first 2 rounds, the final ranking would be determined. The reason why it was said to be in theory was because it was not absolute. In the 3rd round, every cultivator had to take the initiative to challenge 5 different opponents. In other words, they had to choose 5 people from the top 100 to challenge and determine the winner. In addition, they could only passively accept 5 challenges at most. This rule was set to prevent certain people from colluding with each other, especially against one person. Of course, if one was lucky enough, perhaps no one would challenge them in the entire 3rd round. Then, they would only have to take the initiative to challenge others 5 times. The other 5 battles that were not challenged would be determined by their results. Thus, in the 3rd round of the battle, cultivators had to fight at least 5 battles and at most 10 battles. The moment the top 100 was determined, it also meant that the 3rd round of the battle had officially begun. It was not that Lu Yi looked down on his opponents. However, with his current strength and experience, cultivators at the Cloud River tier were not much of a threat to him. The kind of opponent he chose did not make any difference to him. His consciousness moved through the names one by one. Just as he was about to randomly pick a lucky fellow cultivator, there was a sudden movement from the battlefield imprint. At the same time, an extremely hollow voice sounded in his mind. Ing Wuji challenges you. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. There was actually someone who did not fear death? Oh, as the voice sounded, a layer of ripples appeared on the heaven's secret pillar. Without giving Lu Yi any time to react, it enveloped him. His vision blurred, and he had already appeared in a dense forest. The first and second rounds of the Battle of Clouds and River were both in an environment similar to a battle arena. The space was not small, and it was enough for cultivators of any sect to display their strength. Thus, the two sides of the battle could see each other the moment they entered. But the third round was obviously a little different. This time, the venue of the battle was not a battle arena, but a small space. Furthermore, this space was chosen by the challengers. In this way, the challengers' advantage could be fully displayed, and the challengers could obtain the greatest advantage. Lu Yi had previously understood the various rules of the Battle of Clouds and River, so he was not surprised by this. The dense forest was gloomy, and the surrounding trees swayed. The wind blew and the grass rustled. Killing intent surged. Treacherous Te-31 Ha, there was a hidden formation. With a thought, he tried to fly into the air. In the end, after flying for 3 meters, it was as if there was a huge mountain on his back and he could not fly any higher. Great Flight Restriction Formation. Not only could the battle harvesters create some formations, they could also tailor some formations to their advantage. Of course, these formations covered the entire battle arena, and both sides of the battle would be affected. In such an environment, coupled with a Great Flight Restriction Formation, Lu Yi immediately understood that the opponent who challenged him was a ghost cultivator. The secluded forest was quiet, and the vegetation was overgrown. It was suitable for ghost cultivators to hide and ambush. The Great Flight Restriction Formation was mainly to prevent him from flying into the air. Then he thought of the name Ingwuji. Lu Yi faintly felt that it sounded familiar. This name? Where did he seem to have heard it before? However, the Cloud River Realm cultivators who could fight their way into the top 100 were all core disciples of the top sections. Most of these people had made a name for themselves in the Cloud River battlefield. It was normal that he had heard of them before. Chapter 770. Deep in the forest, Ingwuji hid in the trunk of a big tree, using a secret technique to hide his figure and restrain his aura. He had heard of Lu Yi's strength recently. He had single-handedly fought against 200 enemies from the Myriad Demon's Ridge, killing them until they fell apart. Outside Heaven's secret city, he had killed Xiao Yang in front of everyone and made a name for himself. Ingwuji admitted that he was no match for such terrifying strength in a head-on confrontation. But for ghost cultivators, cultivation was never the most important thing. Just like sword cultivators, ghost cultivators were born with the ability to kill enemies above their realm. But unlike sword cultivators, ghost cultivators had always been sneaky. So, no matter how strong Lu Yi was, as long as he could find an opportunity, he could kill Lu Yi in one blow. He had suffered a great loss at Lu Yi's hands. A group of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had attacked Heavenly Spirit Land. Search. Jianghu had just gotten within 10 of Lu Yi when he was discovered and was injured by Lu Yi's spirit array. He had no choice but to escape. His Yuan Qi had been greatly damaged. While he was healing in the depths of Grand Meng Mountain, he happened to run into Lu Yi, who had used the transmission array to go to Heavenly Spirit Land. At that time, Lu Yi was only a 6th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, while he was a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. It was a great humiliation. After that, he returned to the 9 States main sect. While healing, he also cultivated the secret techniques of Senluo Temple. After half a year, he had finally made some progress. Although his cultivation had not increased, his strength had undergone an earth-shaking change. He had suffered a great loss at Lu Yi's hands, so he naturally wanted to get revenge. It was not only for this reason that he took the initiative to challenge Lu Yi. More importantly, when Lu Yi spied on his whereabouts in Heavenly Spirit Land, he felt that it was not the power of a spirit array. That Lu Yi seemed to have some kind of special ability that allowed him to see through his whereabouts. This was absolutely intolerable for a ghost cultivator. Being able to hide was the greatest advantage of a ghost cultivator. If even this advantage did not exist, then what was the point of ghost cultivators existing? For half a year, every time Ingwuji thought of Lu Yi's sudden glance at him, he found it hard to sleep. Now that he had made some progress in his secret technique, and his ghostly cultivation was even more powerful than half a year ago, he had the confidence to challenge Lu Yi. In this battle, he was going to face his own flaws. He was going to correct the name of the ghost. The mountain wind was bleak. In his field of vision, Lu Yi was 30 feet high in the air, quietly floating. His figure was relaxed as if he was not on guard at all. That look. Ingwuji's eyes were calm as he leapt down from the tree trunk like a ghost, quickly approaching Lu Yi. There was no sound and no trace. Ing Wuban had already imagined the scene of him clashing with Yang many times, but the moment he truly made his move, his entire being had sunk into a state of tranquility. This was undoubtedly the most perfect state for a ghost cultivator. Under such circumstances, with his foundation, even if the opponent in front of him was a true lake-stage cultivator, he still had the confidence to kill him. As he advanced, 2 pitch-black scimitars appeared in his hands. He suddenly launched an attack when he was 30 feet behind Lu Yi. The calm small space was disturbed by the sudden explosion of spiritual energy. The wind howled in the mountain wilderness and the trees swayed. Ing Wuji's entire body turned into a black line, like a pitch-black lightning bolt. It attacked Lu Ye's back like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye it was close. There was a sudden flash of red light. Suddenly a fiery red light appeared. When the sharp saber light chopped down, the calm state of mind finally rippled out. Shocking ripples. Ing Wuji's figure suddenly appeared in front of him. The 2 scimitars were in front of him, blocking the blade that Lu Yi had suddenly turned around and slashed out. They were very close to each other. Their eyes met, and Ing Wuji could faintly see the coldness in Lu Ye's eyes. You. Ing Wuji's face was filled with shock. He did not know if his previous whereabouts had been exposed. If they had been, then this Lu Ye's perception was too sharp. The current him was not the him of half a year ago, who had mastered Sin Luo Hall's secret technique and hidden medicine skills. Half a year ago he had made great progress. In the same realm as Yun, there was no reason for anyone to be able to spy on him. Concealing his whereabouts was impossible, let alone having his back to him. But if Lu Yi had not spied on his whereabouts in advance, then his reaction speed was simply too shocking. Almost at the moment he attacked, Lu Yi had turned around and counterattacked. Was this something that a Cloud River Realm cultivator could do? It's you? Lu Yi finally recognized who Ing Wuji was. They had fought once in the Huitian Valley and once in the Taimang Mountains. Both times, this fellow had suffered a great loss under his hands. After that, there had been no news of him. However, he did not expect to meet him again in this Cloud River struggle. The first time they fought, he had used the power of the spirit array to injure this person. The second time could be considered as beating a drowning dog when his primordial chi was greatly injured. Neither of those times was a reflection of his own strength. This time, however, it was different. Even if there was still a gap in cultivation, it was impossible for him to pose any threat. Once Ing Wuji was exposed, he would not be able to escape. As he spoke, he suddenly put more strength into his hands. Ing Wuji had no time to panic because his twin sabers were suddenly struck by a force that he could not resist. His 2 scimitars were knocked aside, and the long saber that burned like flames was about to cut down on him. When Ing Wuji's pupils shrank, Zhou Wu's aura fluctuated. Play. Zhou Wu opened his mouth and said, "Invisible shadow, coming and going without a trace." The long saber fell, splitting Ing Wuji's body in half. But Lu Yi raised his brow. This saber strike did not feel like it had hit anything, it felt like it had only split a shadow. What kind of secret technique is this? He immediately turned his head, stared at a certain spot to the side, and exerted strength into his feet, causing the ground to crack as he rushed forward. Go. Ing Wuji, who had hidden himself again, felt his scalp go numb. Has my whereabouts been seen? Impossible. He had already pushed this secret technique to its limit, so there was no reason for it to be so easy for his netherworld radiance to appear. But even if he was still hidden at this moment, it seemed that he could still see the shadow in Lu Ye's eyes. A terrifying sense of oppression swept over as Lu Ye's figure approached, making it difficult for him to breathe. At this moment he finally understood one thing. Lu Ye, this guy. His perception was unbelievably strong, which was why he could see his whereabouts so easily. And his second saber strike. He definitely could not block it. He no longer had any hope, nor did he make any futile resistance. He hurriedly shouted, "Admit defeat." The moment his figure reappeared, it disappeared and he was sent out of the arena. Lu Yi paused and sheathed his saber. A moment later, his figure slowly dissipated. In the Tianji Hall of the Sanluo Temple, Ing Wuji appeared with a pale face. He looked around and saw a familiar scene. Only then did he feel relieved. Then he saw the skinny Ing Wuji waiting on the side. He stepped forward with a guilty expression and said, "Master, this disciple has lost." The old man had already guessed when he saw Ing Wuji, so he did not think much of it. A loss is nothing. A cultivator cultivates for a lifetime, and victory and defeat are common. No one can guarantee that they will not lose. Only by facing yourself and recognizing your shortcomings can you become stronger and stronger. Yes. Ing Wuji nodded respectfully. After thinking for a moment he said, Master, that Luiye's perception seems to be ridiculously strong. Disciple's concealment technique has no effect on him at all. I'm afraid that even my invisible shadow concealment technique is useless. The old man could not help but be surprised this time. He can even see through invisible shadow concealment. Ing Wuji nodded. This is strange. Logically speaking, only those whose cultivation is several minor realms higher than yours can see through your whereabouts. Right now he is only at the 8th order Cloud River realm. No matter how strong his perception is, how strong can it be? Disciple suspects that he was born with a much stronger mind than others. Jing Fang guessed. The strength of one's mind was directly related to the strength of one's soul. Before the Spirit Sea realm, the improvement of a cultivator's cultivation and the accumulation of time could indeed gradually strengthen one's soul, but that was a passive accumulation. There was no way to actively cultivate it unless one took some kind of precious treasure that could increase the strength of one's soul. Such treasures were all priceless. Even Spirit Sea realm cultivators would fight over them. How could Luiye, a mere Cloud River realm cultivator, be qualified to obtain them? Therefore, Ing Wuji could only speculate like this, which was quite reasonable. If that's the case, then let him go, avoid him, and when the time comes we can look back at him. Yes. Ing Wuji responded respectfully, secretly making up his mind. In the future, wherever Luiye appeared, he would avoid him. It would be best if he never saw this guy again. Defeating Ing Wuji against Luiye would be like playing. In terms of direct combat ability, Ing Wuji was even inferior to Xiao Liang, so how could he be Luiye's opponent? Returning to Blue Blood Sect's Heaven's Secret Hall, Luiye immersed himself in the battlefield imprint and continued to select his lucky companions. He did not have any particular targets and was just randomly choosing. Of course, it was impossible for him to choose his 4th senior brother and the others. After selecting several people in succession, the feedback from the battlefield imprint indicated that these people were currently in battle. It had not taken him much time to deal with Ing Wuji, but the same could not be said for the others. One had to know that the people who were currently fighting were all in the top 100, each of them extremely powerful. It was not something that could be solved in a short time. However, Luiye was not in a hurry and continued to choose. There would always be someone who was free. It was not until he chose one of them that the battlefield imprint gave him a different response. Play. A hollow voice sounded in his mind. Challenge Lan Zi. This woman is a little unlucky, Luiye thought. However, being able to be chosen by him proved one thing. This woman was very strong, so she could determine the winner in a very short time with her opponent. At this moment she could be considered free. Abnormal. After waiting for a moment, the hollow voice sounded again. The other party has accepted the challenge. You may choose the battlefield. As a weapon cultivator, there was naturally nothing much to say about the choice of battlefield. It was the simplest kind of battlefield. Suddenly, his vision blurred and he appeared in the battlefield. Looking up, not far away, Erzi was looking at him, her brows furrowed. Chapter 771. You did it on purpose? In the arena, Lan Zi looked at Lu Yi with an annoyed expression. Out of 100 people, he had chosen her. This was not on purpose. What was it? Lu Yi was too lazy to explain anything to her. Not to mention that he didn't do it on purpose, so what if he did it on purpose? He raised his hand and pressed it on the hilt of the Panshan saber. In his current state he was about to charge out in the next moment. Don't make a move. I will admit defeat. Lan Zi's words made Lu Yi feel extremely uncomfortable. Although he had defeated Lan Zi in one match, he had only displayed his magic. He was in the middle of the Cloud River battle. If he didn't fight properly he would admit defeat. Lu Yi didn't know whether to say that this woman was sensible or not. She was still timid and cautious. Although I don't know how I offended you to make you so targeted, I still want to say that since you can't kill me, it doesn't matter how you target me. Use it. Also, I can't say what you said last time. Before he could finish his words, Lu Yi had already rushed out. Under the support of Windwalk he was behind him. He left an afterimage. Lan Zi was furious and blurted out, "Admit defeat." As her figure disappeared, Lu Yi rushed to the place where she was originally standing. In front of her. If you admit defeat, then admit defeat. Cut the crap. However, he didn't know that after Ing Wuji, there was a second person in this world. He didn't want to see him. The battles in the top 100 were indeed very intense. Basically, every battle had to be fought. After a long battle, according to the rules set by Tianji, there were 3 people who were challenged. They had 2 hours of rest time. In other words, even if the person who was challenged accepted the challenge, there were 3 hours. They had time to adjust their condition and recover from their injuries. As a result, Lu Yi had a long gap between each of his battles. After defeating Lan Zi, he waited for a full 12 hours before he succeeded. He challenged his second opponent. The battle ended very quickly. Naturally, he had won a complete victory. It had to be said that the people in the top 100 of Yunhe were all extraordinary. They were afraid of knowing that it was Lu Yi who challenged them, even if they were injured. However, no one had ever rejected his challenge. There were even people who took the initiative to challenge him. They might not believe that Lu Yi's strength was as exaggerated as the rumors said. Maybe it was just out of confidence in himself, or maybe he didn't want to miss out on being with Lu Yi Zichen had a chance to fight. In short, these people came from the top sections. After fighting with Lu Yi, regardless of whether their bodies were injured or not, the heavens chosen who had fought with Lu Yi had all recovered. More or less, there was some trauma in the heart. Because the strength displayed by Lu Yi had already exceeded their understanding. The limit. What everyone didn't know was that this wasn't Lu Yi's limit. According to the rules of Tianji, he was allowed to bring amber with him. With the fusion of his qi and blood, his strength would become even stronger. 2 days later, the 10 battles were finally over. He returned to the green bamboo peak and continued to cultivate. Soon he forgot about the flow of time. Fleeting. Lu Yi only came back to his senses when the battlefield imprint moved. The 3rd round of the Cloud River contest had ended. He checked his own battlefield imprint. He saw that the information recorded in the last column had changed. Cloud River Battle Ranking, 1st place. The 1st round of the Cloud River Battle for Supremacy was to select from the countless cultivators of the Cloud River tier. 3,000 people. In the 2nd round, 100 people would be selected from the 3,000. However, there was no ranking in these 2 rounds. There was only the 3rd place. After the end of the round, the top 100 of the Cloud River Battle would be temporarily determined. The ranking was then revealed. These 100 people were undoubtedly the most powerful in the 9 states Cloud River realm in the past 5 years. The essence could be said that all of them had the potential to break through to the Divine Sea realm. As soon as the 2nd round ended and the list was announced, it caused a stir. All the sects in the 9 states paid attention. Now that there was a ranking, their attention was even more intense. The excitement was even higher. Even though they had already predicted it, when the masters of the various sections. When they saw the name in 1st place, they still found it hard to believe. Lu Yi. With his Cloud River 8th Order cultivation, he suppressed all the geniuses of his generation. The Cloud River battle for supremacy in the 9 states had never happened before. Every generation of Cloud River battle for supremacy, without exception, it was always Cloud River. The cultivation of the 9th Order. The difference in cultivation of the 1st Order was often the difference between heaven and earth. If an 8th Order could take the 1st place, how terrifying would a 9th Order be? Strength? And after this Cloud River battle for supremacy, Tianji would give out another reward. Lu Yi was not far from the 9th Order. There was no room for human intervention in the ranking of the list, it was the luck of Tianji. Naturally, no one questioned the fairness of Tianji. In other words, Lu Yi to be ranked 1st, he had the strength to be ranked 1st. Fortunately, others had a chance because this list was only temporary. Alright. The 4th round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy was the ranking battle. Through the victory and defeat of the 3rd round of battles, as well as the cultivator's performance in the previous battles. Tianji had temporarily determined the top 100 rankings based on their various performances. But to completely determine the rankings, the 4th round of the battle had to be completed. What the top 100 cultivators of Cloud River needed to do in the 4th round was to compete with the rankings. The cultivators in front of them would issue a challenge and win against the challenged cultivator. They would replace him in the rankings. There were 3 chances. In other words, there were 3 chances to fail. If they failed 3 challenges, they would have no chance to advance. The rules of the Cloud River battle for supremacy were the same every generation. Therefore, some cultivators did not show their true strength in the first 3 rounds of battles. They did not show their true strength, but hid it under the premise that it was possible. Only in the 4th round would they go all out and burst out with their full strength. The strength of the ministry. The biggest difference between the 4th round and the first 3 rounds was that they could watch from the sidelines. The cultivators of the 9 prefectures, no matter what their cultivation was, as long as they had their own battlefield. Through the imprint they could throw their minds into the battles. They could observe the battles of these prodigies as a bystander. Battles. For the older generation of cultivators, such a bystander could let them see with their own eyes. They could see the performance of their own disciples and see their shortcomings clearly. In the future they would have targeted pointers. At the same time, they could see the potential of the younger generation of the enemy camp. Strength. For the younger generation of cultivators, through such a bystander, there was no doubt that they could learn a lot of useful experience from it and see the strength of others. They recognized the gap between themselves and the strong, worked hard and courageously chased after them. Therefore, for generations, during the duration of the fourth round of the Cloud River battle for supremacy, every battle had countless cultivators immerse themselves in watching through the imprint. Often, the exciting and intense battles could make the cultivators talk about them with relish for a long time. For a period of time, the aftertaste was endless. On the Green Bamboo Peak, Lu Yi rushed to the defense peak while checking the 100 prefectures. The complete list of the strong. Read the latest chapter. www.Wuxia.com. He saw many familiar names, but there were also many that he had never seen before. Below his name was a person called Mu Qingyun. Lu Yi's eyes flashed. If he remembered correctly, the Beishin sword master's surname was Mu. This Mu Qingyun was very likely a sword cultivator from the Beishin sword sect. And he was the current generation's sword master. However, Lu Yi had never heard of this Mu Qingyun on the Cloud River battlefield. Yun. From the looks of it, he should be the kind of person who stopped in the Cloud River realm. He stayed for a long time and deliberately did not advance to the True Lake realm, just to wait for the Cloud River battle. The kind of person. This kind of person usually did not move around the Cloud River battlefield. They were basically in the 9 prefectures. Even if he had made a big name for himself before, as time passed, he gradually calmed down. Looking up, among the top 10, the latest chapter. www.Wuxia.com belonged to the kind of people who seemed to have suddenly appeared. But if these people's names were placed 1 or 2 years ago, many people in the Cloud River battlefield would definitely know. Just like him today. Lan Zi was ranked 11th. Although Lan Zi admitted defeat in front of him twice, this woman was actually very strong, but she was born at the wrong time. According to Lu Ye's estimation, her strength was definitely in the top 10. But the main factor that affected the ranking of the list in front of him was the previous battle. Lan Zi had been defeated by him before, so it was impossible for him to rank her too high. However, as long as she really had the corresponding strength, she could naturally take her time. Take her time to fight. Feng Rulai, who had once introduced himself to him, was ranked 15th. These were not Lu Ye's concern. He just glanced at it and did not close it again. Note. Finally, he found the name he was looking for on the 36th list. Giant Armor. This big guy had really achieved an incredible result. Compared to Lu Ye's cultivation, his cultivation was even lower, only Yun He's. He was only in the 7th order, but he was ranked 36th. It was already a very high ranking. Yes. This meant that in the previous battles he had been defeated. The number of times was definitely not more than 3. There were still benefits to having a strong physique. When facing an enemy who cared about your secret techniques just charge through. However, Giant Armor's ranking was higher than 4th senior brother and Feng Yuechan. Lu Yi did not expect this. He did not know what the standard of Heaven's secret was. Was it? In the 42nd and 43rd positions. Lu Yi saw Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan's names were both on the list, one in front and one behind. He did not look at the list behind. What he cared about was those close to him. Those close to him were just a few people. As for the others, let's see how many of them there will be in another 10 years. Even Lu Yi himself did not dare to say what he would do in 10 years. In the process of a cultivator's growth, there were too many accidents and disasters. There were many geniuses who had their wings broken before they grew up. The crazy confrontation between the two camps had buried countless cultivators of the 9 regions. Dreams. Soon he arrived at Heaven's secret hall. Lu Yi sat cross-legged in front of the Heaven's secret pillar. He was at the top of the top 100, so he naturally did not need to challenge others. There was only one thing to do, and that was to wait here and let others challenge him. Fortunately, he had a lot of things to do, such as digesting the gift of the 100 Formation Tower, studying the books he had brought out from Madame Yun, and swallowing spirit pills to cultivate. Even if he was just waiting, it would not be boring. Time passed little by little. The battlefield imprint did not respond at all. Lu Yi was not surprised. According to the rules, only the second-ranked person was qualified to challenge him now. Mu Qingyun and the third-ranked Yang Yuan were likely not lacking in challengers. His courage was just that the time was not yet right. Chapter 772. With the outbreak of battle after battle, the ranking of the top 100 was constantly changing. When someone went up, someone would naturally go down. Names floated up and down on the list, making it extremely lively. Almost every battle would attract the attention of countless cultivators from the 9 states, especially the battles that were ranked at the top. Even the cultivators of the Divine Sea realm would watch them with great interest. Seeing the vitality of the younger generation, they couldn't help but recall their own past. On the first day of the 4th round, Lu Yi didn't receive any challenges and passed peacefully. On the second day he had nothing to do, so he found Giant Armor's name on the top 100 list and immersed himself in it. The next moment, a clear image appeared in his mind. It was as if this image was directly projected into his mind. This was also a unique way of watching battles for cultivators of the 9 states. In the familiar terrain of the battle arena, the burly Giant Armor was fighting fiercely with a Dharma cultivator. Lu Yi didn't know how long the battle lasted. When he watched the battle, he only saw that the Dharma cultivator's aura was fluctuating, and his expression was both fiery and emotionless as he was chased around by Giant Armor. This kind of terrain was actually not friendly for Dharma cultivators, because there wasn't much space to move around. If he had to choose the terrain of the battle, he would definitely not choose such a place. However, he was the one being challenged while Giant Armor was the one who issued the challenge. The right to choose the terrain was in Giant Armor's hands. The Dharma cultivator was undoubtedly a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. His strength and foundation were all extraordinary, and he danced in the air one after another. However, in the face of these powerful Dharma techniques that could make any 9th Order body cultivator retreat, Giant Armor, who was only a 7th Order cultivator, didn't care. He was like a mad beast, breaking every Dharma technique he encountered. Relying on his shockingly powerful physique, he forcibly shattered the Dharma techniques one after another, constantly chasing after the Dharma cultivator. Those powerful Dharma techniques bombarded his body, but at most they could only slow him down slightly and cause him some flesh wounds. The muscles on his bare upper body bulged and his entire body boiled like the sun. Lu Yi watched for a moment and knew that Giant Armor should be winning this battle. The advantages and disadvantages of the Giant Armor were extremely obvious. The advantage was that its physique was unbelievably powerful, and it could ignore most attacks. At the Cloud River tier, there were very few people who could unleash attacks that could threaten its life. Even the current Lu Yi would have to unleash the full power of the Myriad Stars technique if he wanted to do so. However, its weakness was that it was not flexible enough. Of course, this was only relative. One of them was doing his best but was unable to cause any effective damage to his opponent, while the other was chasing after his opponent but was unable to get close to his opponent. If one of them wanted to win, they could only wait for one side to run out of spiritual energy. Spell cultivators constantly cast spells which consumed a lot of energy, but the Giant Armor didn't have this concern, so the spell cultivators should be the first to run out of energy. Furthermore, considering that he might have to challenge others in the future, or accept other people's challenges, he would definitely not allow himself to fall into a state of spiritual energy exhaustion. It shouldn't be long before Giant Armor's opponent admitted defeat. Just as Lu Yi expected, less than half a cup of tea later, the panting magic cultivator suddenly stopped running and looked helplessly at the Giant Armor that was charging towards him. He said, "Why did I have to meet a monster like you?" The Giant Armor ignored him and closed in on him, smashing a heavy iron fist down. "Admit defeat." The magic cultivator shouted and his figure disappeared. The Giant Armor's fist hit empty air. He didn't care much. Ever since he participated in the Battle of the Clouds and River, he had experienced this scene too many times. Most of the time, others couldn't do anything to him and he couldn't do anything to them either. It was always like this that he forced his opponent to leave. Naturally, Lu Yi wasn't the only one watching this battle. There were also some true Lake and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators from large sections. Although the Giant Armor didn't cause any damage to the magic cultivator from the beginning to the end, the strength of his physique moved those true Lake and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. There were already many people secretly investigating the origins and background of the Giant Armor. Unlike Lu Yi, who stirred up a storm in the Battle of the Clouds and River and had a great reputation, no one paid attention to Giant Armor ever since he entered the Battle of the Clouds and River. Now that he suddenly showed his prowess, it naturally aroused the interest of those experts from large sections. Such a gifted body cultivator, if they could recruit him and nurture him, he would definitely be a big pillar of the sect in the future. After asking around, they couldn't find out anything about the giant armor. No one knew where he came from. This made those true lake and spirit sea realm cultivators who were interested in the giant armor feel helpless. After the giant armor's battle ended, Lu Yi went to watch the 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers battle. The 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers battle was much more intense. Sword chi crisscrossed, sword hums sounded, and flying sword light shuttled through the void. He fought with his opponent in full swing. It was the kind of battle that was both enjoyable to watch and real. The 4th Senior Apprentice Brothers' opponent's strength wasn't inferior to his, so Lu Yi couldn't tell who would win this battle. But as a sword cultivator, Li Baxian's every attack consumed a lot of energy. If he couldn't win in a short period of time, then he would be the one to lose. The sword cultivator was number 1 in the 9 regions, but the disadvantage was that it consumed too much energy. Until Li Baxian's body merged with the sword light and slashed out a ghostly attack in the void, it was as if the sword was used as a brush, splashing ink and writing a heavy stroke. This blow struck a flaw in the enemy's defense. Li Baxian's opponent was obviously taken aback, but before he could react, another sword light swept out. Cutting through the void, it was like a sword. Book Sword Secret Art. Although it hadn't been long since he obtained the Book Sword Secret Art, Li Baxian's talent in the sword path was extremely high and he had already comprehended something of his own from it. These 2 unpredictable sword strikes completely messed up the enemy's formation. One wrong move and the whole game was lost. A moment later, Li Baxian's opponent had admitted defeat and left, leaving only Li Baxian in his white robes, gently exhaling. This battle wasn't easy for him to win. Furthermore, he could sense that this was already his limit. If he wanted to climb any higher, he would have to raise his cultivation, but a 7th order Cloud River realm cultivation was too much. Sighing slightly, he quickly left. This Cloud River battle was destined to make many divine sea cultivators of the 9 regions gasp in amazement, because not only was there Lu Yi, an 8th order Cloud River realm cultivator. There was also a talented body cultivator like Zhu Jia, Li Baxian, and Feng Yu maidservant, and all 3 of them were only 7th order Cloud River realm cultivators. This kind of thing had never happened in the past Cloud River battle. In the past Cloud River battles, the top 100 were almost all 9th order Cloud River realm cultivators. Since when could 7th order and 8th order Cloud River realm cultivators enter such a battlefield? And all of them performed extremely well. At the same time, another name entered the eyes of the cultivators of the 9 regions. Lan Zi. This woman, who was originally ranked 11th on the top 100 list, was steadily increasing her ranking. In the rules of the 4th round, challengers could only challenge opponents 2 ranks higher than them. They couldn't directly challenge those ranked higher. Lan Zi was originally ranked 11th, so she could only challenge the 9th place at most. So, after the first day of the 4th round, she replaced the 9th place. On the 2nd day she became 7th. On the 3rd day she was 5th. By the 5th day she had become 2nd, only below Lu Yi. Her unhurried style of moving 1F and 5L undoubtedly showed her absolute confidence in her strength. She believed that she could defeat the opponents in front of her and replace them. She really did it. Everyone who paid attention to this felt that it was incredible. Because the top 10, except for Lu Yi, were all masters who had been in the Cloud River realm for at least a year. Lan Zi was able to defeat all of them, which showed how powerful she was. And the cultivators who watched her battles could also see that this female cultivator wasn't the kind of person who only had cultivation but no corresponding strength. Her fighting style was changeable and she was extremely experienced in fighting enemies. She could perfectly exert her strength, so almost every battle was easy for her to win. Only the battle with Mu Qingyun was more difficult, but it wasn't because Mu Qingyun's strength was far superior to the others. As a sword cultivator, Mu Qingyun's every move was a killing move, so Lan Zi had to be careful. In that battle, Lan Zi was injured, and Mu Qingyun's injuries were more serious. Everyone was waiting for her next move, waiting for her to challenge the unchallenged Lu Yi who had been occupying the first place until now. So, when the 6th day of the 4th round arrived, countless eyes in the 9 prefectures stared at Lu Yi and Lan Zi's names, anticipating the arrival of a shocking battle. However, everything was calm. On the 6th day, Lan Tongyi, who was ranked G0, did not show any signs of activity. It was unavoidably disappointing. Some people guessed that Lan Fani was injured in the previous battle with Mu Qingyun, so she must be recuperating today. She wanted to be in her best condition to fight Lu Yi. This guess was reasonable and naturally received the approval of many people. Under the eyes of tens of thousands of people, the last day of the fourth round arrived. More attention was paid to Lan Zi and Lu Ye's names than yesterday. The entire 9 prefectures seemed to be shrouded in an oppressive and expectant atmosphere. In front of the Tianji pillar, Lu Yi sighed slightly. He originally thought that in the fourth round he might have to fight with Mu Qingyun and Yang Yuan. These geniuses didn't lack the courage to challenge stronger people, and they were also willing to prove themselves on such an occasion. Even if it was just to see the means and elegance of stronger people, they wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. Because if Lu Yi was in their shoes, he would also make the same choice. But now, it seemed that there was no chance. Lan Zi was ranked second now. This woman had admitted defeat twice, so it was impossible for her to challenge him. As for Mu Qingyun, who was pushed down by her, it seemed that her injuries hadn't healed yet. It was good enough that she could keep her third place. How could she have the strength to challenge others? Chapter 773. On the 7th day of the 4th round of the Cloud River Battle Royale, battles broke out one after another. Almost everyone on the list was fighting. The challengers and the ones being challenged kept changing their identities. Even Mu Qingyun was not idle. He was exhausted from the consecutive challenges of the 4th and 5th cultivators. Many people found it hard to understand why the top 2 cultivators were so calm. Lu Ye did not move because he was temporarily at the top of the list and could not challenge anyone else. Why didn't Lan Zi challenge Lu Ye? Based on the powerful strength and foundation that this female cultivator had displayed before, she should be qualified to challenge Lu Ye. She might even be able to pull him down from the top of the list. But gradually, some people realized what was going on. Lan Zi's lack of action undoubtedly meant that the two of them had fought before. Looking back at the list after the 3rd round, Lan Zi was ranked 11th. In other words, she must have lost the previous battle. With her strength, the only person who could defeat her was Lu Ye, and perhaps more than once, Lan Zi did not move because she knew that she was no match for him. Countless cultivators felt sad and disappointed when they realized that. There were not many female cultivators on the top 100 list. Lan Zi came from an extraordinary background and was extremely beautiful, so she naturally gained a lot of fans. These people were all looking forward to her defeating Lu Yi. Now that they found out that Lan Zi had already lost to Lu Yi and did not even have the courage to challenge him, they naturally felt sad. They also hated that high and mighty name more and more. The 7th day of the 4th round passed in this intense and strange atmosphere. When it was midnight, the top 100 list was completely fixed, which also meant the end of the Cloud River Battle Royale. Lu Yi checked the rankings. He was naturally in first place. He did not participate in a single battle in the entire 4th round. As the saying goes, when a person is sitting at home, the first place comes from the sky. This first place came unexpectedly easily. Lan Zi was next. Mu Qingyun was ranked 3rd. As the current sword son of the Beishan sword sect, he was actually qualified to be first. If Lu Yi and Lan Zi did not appear out of nowhere. Lu Qing was ranked 4th. Jianghu, who was originally ranked 3rd at the end of the 3rd round, was ranked 5th. The 6th was Feng Ruli. Lu Yi scrolled down and found that the giant armor was ranked 29th, which was not much of a change from its previous ranking of 36th. It was a small improvement. 4th senior martial brother and Feng Yuedi lived in 33rd and 34th respectively. They had always been inseparable and were evenly matched. If Wuxia, who was in the top 300, was included, then all the people in Huitian Valley's spiritual land were on the list. They had gained a lot. Needless to say, Lu Ye's first place reward was 20 golden spirit lots, which was even more bountiful than his harvest in the Soaring Dragon Realm's secret realm. After all, this was a grand event that only happened once every 5 years, so the heavens couldn't be stingy with the rewards bestowed by the heavens. This was also the reason why those cultivators who had already reached the peak of the Cloud River tier would rather delay their cultivation for a year or two than attempt to break through to the true lake tier. A core disciple from a top sect like Mu Qingyun probably didn't lack cultivation resources. The reward of the golden spirit lot might not be enough for them to make such a choice, but the blessing of the heavens was something that could only be encountered by chance. This was something that the cultivators of the 9 provinces would fight for if they could. The Cloud River battle for supremacy ended, but the aftermath would definitely take a few more months to dissipate. Especially in this Cloud River battle for supremacy, There were too many unexpected talents and battles, enough to make the great cultivators of the divine ocean tier inevitably pay attention. The moment the top 100 list was completely determined, Lu Yi, who was sitting cross-legged in front of the heavenly mystery pillar, felt the heavens descending from the unseen world. He had experienced this kind of thing several times, so he naturally wasn't alarmed. Long before the Cloud River battle for supremacy began, Wuxia had told him that the top 10 would not only receive a large number of golden spirit lots, but also receive the blessings of the heavens. And the blessings of the heavens would affect a cultivator's own luck. Lu Yi used to think that luck was ethereal and intangible and difficult to grasp. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't perceive luck, but the War Merit Pavilion should have a great relationship with the blessings of the heavens. He didn't know much about the War Merit Pavilion, only that it wasn't a place that ordinary people could enter. The last person who was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion was a few decades ago. Lu Yi had been wondering why he was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion these days. Perhaps it was related to the blessings of the heavens. Once the blessings of the heavens reached a certain level, one would be qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion. Collecting his thoughts, Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed it on the heavenly mystery pillar, connecting his mind to the heavenly mystery treasure house. The Cloud River battle for supremacy was over, and the blessings of the heavens were fulfilled, so it was naturally time to collect his spoils. Rewards bestowed by the heavens, such as the golden spirit lots, needed to be taken initiative to enter the heavenly mystery treasure house to collect them. After a short while, Lu Yi left the heavenly mystery hall and returned to Green Bamboo Peak. There were already 20 golden spirit lots in his storage space. He was now an 8th order Cloud River realm cultivator. Not to mention 20 golden spirit lots, even if he only had 10, it would be enough for him to reach the 9th order Cloud River realm. 20. It was almost enough for him to reach the limit of the Cloud River realm. However, he wasn't in a hurry to use these golden spirit lots to increase his cultivation. He had just broken through to the 8th order Cloud River realm from the 6th order not long ago. Even though his foundation was solid and there were no hidden dangers, he still needed some time to settle down. It was fine if he slowly swallowed spirit pills to cultivate, but if he continued to use the spirit lots to increase his cultivation rapidly, it wouldn't be appropriate. Moreover, he was currently invincible in the Cloud River tier. Thus, his thirst for cultivation was no longer as urgent as before. He stayed at Green Bamboo Peak for 2 days. Lu Yi then bid farewell to Shui Yuan. The sect master wasn't at Green Bamboo Peak. Ever since he was taken away by Yun Xuechu, he hadn't appeared again. According to Shui Yuan, the sect master was now helping out at Bright Heart Peak, but Shui Yuan didn't know what he was helping with. Lu Yi had some guesses. He had given the damaged dragon throne to his honored master and asked her to help repair it, so his honored master should be busy with this matter. However, with her strength alone, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to do it, so she grabbed the sect master to help her. Inside the heavenly mystery hall, Lu Yi stood with his saber strapped across his body, Hoopa crouched on his shoulder, and Yi had already entered Hoopo's body. "Are you ready?" Lu Yi asked softly. Hoopa howled in response. Lu Yi raised his hand and pressed it on the heaven's fate pillar. Light dots immediately appeared in his mind. Each light dot represented a heaven's fate pillar. Among the countless light dots, there were 2 light dots that were different from the others. They appeared to be new and unconventional. They were the heavenly mystery pillars that he had spent merit points to invite from the Cloud River battlefield. One was in the range of the original hunting ground. One was in the spirit land of Return to Heaven Valley. He chose the one in the spirit land of Return to Heaven Valley, and when his vision changed, he had already entered the Cloud River battlefield. "I'm back," Lu Yi exclaimed as he walked out of the wooden house. No one came to welcome him, and only the demon wolves that were walking around glanced at him. Lu Yi didn't mind. In the Cloud River battle, the people of Return to Heaven Valley had all obtained different numbers of golden spirit lots, and now they were probably cultivating and increasing their cultivation. Hoopa jumped down from his shoulder and Yi flashed out. To the present Lu Yi, there was actually not much difference between cultivating in the 9 states or the Cloud River battlefield. However, at Return to Heaven Valley, the spirit chi of heaven and earth was dense, and the efficiency of cultivation was naturally higher. Moreover, 4th senior brother and the others were all here, and it would be more lively. If he stayed in the 9 states, he would be the only one among his peers. Even if he could go and talk to 2nd senior sister, he would seem lonely. Therefore, when the 1-month deadline was up, he chose to return to Heaven Valley, Beishin sword sect of the war state. As the current sword son, Mu Qingyun was naturally endowed with glory. He had been taken in as a disciple by the sword master since he was young and carefully taught. He was determined, easygoing, and open-minded, and had the demeanor of a disciple from a large sect. Originally, he went with the intention of getting first place in the Cloud River battle, but in the end he only got third place. It was impossible to say that he wasn't disappointed. However, he had fought with Lan Zi and personally experienced the strength of that female cultivator. Therefore, even if he lost to her, Mu Qingyun had no complaints. His skills were not as good as hers, but he cultivated painstakingly. There would be a chance for him to fight again in the future. A person like him would not be defeated by a single loss. He just felt a little regretful. He didn't fight with Liu Ye. Lan Zi was already so strong. How strong was Liu Ye that Lan Zi didn't even want to challenge him? If possible, he still wanted to see Liu Ye's strength with his own eyes. However, he had been in the Cloud River realm for more than a year. It was not good to delay any longer. He sighed softly and took out a golden spiritual stick from his storage space. In the past few days his injuries had healed. It was time for him to break through to the true lake realm and share the burden of the sect. However, just as he was about to crush the golden spiritual stick in his hand, he suddenly had a mysterious feeling. It was as if he would miss something if he broke through to the true lake realm now. This made Mu Qingyun feel strange. He was only a Cloud River realm cultivator. Because he was a sword cultivator, his mind was stronger. Although it was stronger than ordinary cultivators, it was far from being able to sense the Book of the Unknown. After pondering for a while, he got up and walked out of the secret room. Sword light soared into the sky and soon, he arrived in front of a cliff in the sect. On a protruding rock on the cliff, a figure sat upright like a sword. He didn't have any aura and was dressed very plainly. He looked like an ordinary person. However, this person was very famous in the entire 9 prefectures. He was the current sword master of the North Mystery Sword sect, Mu Suifeng. He might not be the oldest in the Spirit Sea realm, nor was he the oldest in terms of experience. However, he was in the group of people with the most terrifying killing intent. No one dared to underestimate his killing intent. Mu Qingyun walked behind him and bowed respectfully. "What's the matter?" Mu Suifeng didn't turn back and only asked softly. "Master, I encountered a strange thing." "Tell me about it." Mu Suifeng knew his disciple's character. If he called it a strange thing, it must be unusual. Chapter 774. In front of the cliff in the Beishin sword sect, Mu Suifeng's tightly shut eyes slowly opened as Mu Qingyun spoke. A look of interest flashed across his eyes as if he had noticed something. "Master, this is very strange. I don't know what to do. Please tell me." Mu Qingyun said. "Sword cultivators follow their hearts. Since you can sense it, let nature take its course. Anyway, you're not in a hurry to reach the true lake realm." "I understand." After Mu Qingyun left, Mu Suifeng sat still. After a long time he looked up at the sky with a deep gaze. At the same time, on Boundless Island, on a spiritual mountain near the ocean, Lan Zi, who was dressed in purple, held the golden spiritual stick in her hand. Her lips curled up, revealing a faint smile. She murmured, "Interesting." Without much hesitation, she put away the spiritual lot and stopped cultivating. Instead, she walked out of her bedroom and went straight to the Tianji Hall on Boundless Island. Compared to Mu Qingyun's confusion, she obviously realized something. In the spiritual land in Heaven Returning Valley, Liu Yi looked at Hua Hui. Not everyone was cultivating, so Hua Hui didn't have a brain. Therefore Liu Yi quickly found her. Contrary to Liu Ye's expectations, Hua Xi directly took out 2 golden spirit sticks and handed them over to him. Search. Hua Hui got into the top 300 in the Cloud River battle. Although the reward wasn't very rich, she still got 2 golden spiritual lots. "I said that my cultivation method is different from ordinary people. This thing is not very useful to me." It wasn't that it was completely useless. With the help of spirit sticks, spirit pills, or breathing in and out the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Hua Xi could also raise her cultivation level using other cultivators' cultivation methods. However, the main purpose of her cultivation wasn't to improve her cultivation. At the same time, she could also strengthen her poison. That was her cultivation method. If she only improved her cultivation, there would be a day when her poison wouldn't work on her enemies. Take her now as an example. No Cloud River Realm cultivator would dare to attack her. Even some true Lake Realm cultivators with lower cultivation would be a threat. However, true Lake Realm cultivators with higher cultivation would be able to resist her. She did not have an effective countermeasure against the enemies of the Lake Realm. She did not have any effective countermeasure. She did not have a good countermeasure. She was a medical cultivator, so they couldn't let her fight the enemy head-on. Also, this isn't a gift to you. Just treat it as a reward. What reward? Lu Yi was puzzled. Escort me to a place tomorrow. Lu Yi gradually came to his senses. You want to hire me as your guard? Hua Xi's eyes curved into crescents. I just don't know if this bit of reward is enough to invite Cloud River's #1. Lu Yi couldn't help but sneer, casually replying, I'm afraid it's not enough. Then what should we do? Hua Xi's expression suddenly turned pitiful. Her voice was faint as she said, I don't have anything valuable on me. If there's really no other way, then I'll have to pay with my body. Lu Yi looked around with a guilty conscience, fearing that Yi might hear her. Only when she found that Yi was not nearby did she feel relieved. He reprimanded Hua Xi and said, You are such a woman, you are always so careless with your words. If you are like this, be careful, I will follow you. Hua Sui's expression was even more aggrieved. It's not like I haven't hurt you before. She still remembered the slap in Tianji Gao Jinyan's room. Lu Yi did not want to continue the conversation. Escorting you is not a problem. You can keep this spirit stick for yourself. Who knows when you will need it? You don't have to give it to me. She turned around and walked a few steps before she remembered. You want to go? 5 Poison Pool. The Spirit Stream battlefield had a forbidden area like the 10,000 Poison Forest, which was covered in poisonous fog, so the Cloud River battlefield naturally had a similar forbidden area. Such places were always fraught with danger, and even the 8th and 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivators would not easily set foot in them. But for Hua Xi, there was no better cultivation environment in this world than such a place. She cultivated in returning Heaven Valley Spirit Land mainly by refining the poison pills that Lu Yi gave her. She did not absorb any world energy, so her cultivation progress was not great. But with the inheritance she obtained, as long as there was a suitable cultivation environment, she would be able to grow rapidly in a short time. When she first entered the Cloud River battlefield, she wanted to find a place similar to the Forest of 1,000 Poisons. However, before she could do so, she heard from Li Baxin that Sueya was trapped in the map. She immediately set off to rescue him. After that, she was brought to returning Heaven Valley Shell Land by Wei Yi and participated in the Cloud River battle. During this time, she bought a 10-point map from the Tianji treasure house and used it to find a suitable place for her cultivation. Finally, she found a place like 5 Poison Ba Waterfall. Now that the Cloud River battle was over, it was time to set off. The journey was not short. She would be safer if Lu Yi escorted her there, so she could avoid any unexpected accidents along the way. After discussing this matter with Hua Xi, Lu Yi took out the 10-point map to search for the location of the 5 Poison Pool. Soon she found something. On the 10-point map, the 3 words 5 Poison Pool appeared pitch black and deep, giving people a sense of unease. Anyone who saw it would know that this was a dangerous place that could not be easily trespassed. Just as she was about to put away the 10-point map, Lu Yi seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly glanced along the route from returning Heaven Valley to the 5 Poison Pool. A moment later, he put away the 10-point map and headed in the direction of the Tianji Pillar. Li Baxin, Feng Yu and Giant Armor were all in closed-door cultivation, so it was not good to rashly disturb them. Fortunately, cultivators had a high frequency of ketogenic, allergic and acidic substances, so there was no need to specially inform them when the 5-flower charm test opened. When Yuan Tu and the others came out of closed-door cultivation and could not find her, they would definitely send a message to ask. It would not be too late to explain it to them then. When the night was silent and the sky was bright, Lu Yi packed up and walked out of his wooden house with Cheng Pa. At the same time, the door next door was pushed open. Let's go. Lu Yi called out and took out his spirit boat. Hua Xi unceremoniously stepped on it and sat down diagonally. Lu Yi glared at her and could only follow. As he channeled his spiritual energy, the spirit boat soared into the sky. Along the way, his nose was filled with Hua Xi's unique body fragrance. He flashed out and was chatting with Hua Xi. Along the way, her bell-like laughter scattered. When his cultivation was not high, he had to be careful when flying on the Cloudy River battlefield. He could not fly too high. If he flew too high, he would not be able to escape if he encountered an unstoppable expert. He could not fly too low either. If he flew too low, he would most likely be ambushed from the ground. A height of around 100 copper coins was just right. Thinking back to when he first entered the Cloudy Net battlefield and his various experiences and tricks, Shuyi could not help but curse. Now, he naturally did not need to care about these things. He could fly however he wanted and as high as he wanted. If there was any trouble, the saber in his hand would teach them a lesson. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation was about to reach the limit that the Cloudy River battlefield could accommodate. Looking back, he did not seem to have been in the Cloudy River battlefield for long. Compared to the time he spent cultivating in the Spirit Stream battlefield, it was even shorter. Once he reached the true lake stage, it would be time to leave the Cloudy River battlefield. When that time came, what would welcome him would be the vast stage of the 9 continents. As his cultivation increased, his speed on the Cloudy River battlefield also increased. In just a day he left Taimeng Mountain. At night, he casually found a place to rest in the wilderness and set up an alert and defensive array. He did not have to worry about being ambushed. On the second day he set off again. Wuxia quickly realized that something was wrong. Lu Yi, is the direction wrong? The general direction was not wrong, but the angle of the flight seemed to be flat and there was a problem with the shoes. If this Kujiging continued to fly, he would definitely bend to the west where Wu Bo Piao was. That was right. Huey agreed. I will go and solve some personal problems first. Wuxia understood and observed a moment of silence for the unknown enemy. She did not ask who Lu Yi was looking for trouble with. According to what she knew, Lu Yi had enemies everywhere in the Spirit Stream battlefield. When he came to the Cloudy River battlefield, it seemed like he was also an enemy. She just did not know who was so unlucky to have him directly go to their door like this. Lu Yi was not someone who did not hold grudges, but he had too many enemies. It was useless to remember the latest update on www.zaichuaxiap.com. Moreover, the situation in the Cloudy River battlefield was not the same as the Spirit Stream battlefield. Most of the cultivators here did not have a fixed residence. Even if they wanted to find someone for revenge, they might not have the chance to meet. But there was only one exception. That was a cultivator who owned a spiritual land. Cultivators who owned a spiritual land could not casually move disciples under normal circumstances, unless they were willing to bear the consequences of the spiritual land's grade falling. This was because something like a spring spirit, once it was placed, if one wanted to take it out again, the quality would inevitably fall by a solid level. On the Cloudy River battlefield, there were many cultivators who participated in the encirclement and suppression of Lu Yi, but there was only one place where he could take revenge. The Holy Character Spirit Extinction. 5 was that the High Character test was not cut and selected by the High Character Calculation Mountain. According to the photo agency, he did not want to go to the Holy Eve's spiritual land, but yesterday. It could barely be considered the route he was taking this time. The Heavenly Investigation report was very accurate. When they were determining the route, they inadvertently alerted them to the Holy Character Spirit Land. It could only be said that they were somewhat unlucky. In the distance, the Holy Eve's spiritual land was in sight. Generally speaking, the radius of 100 miles around such a large-scale spiritual land was almost equivalent to the mountain gate of a sect. If any cultivator dared to approach it, it would be a provocation. Looking at the entire Cloudy River battlefield, the Holy Eve's spiritual land strength was considered strong. The Holy Flame sect and the Huanyu sect jointly built this spiritual land. It was passed down generation after generation, and it had helped the two sects breed many elite disciples. Such a large-scale spiritual land could be said to be one of the foundations of the two sections. In the spiritual land there were 300 cultivators. Even if it was attacked, it would not be defeated in a short period of time. And as long as it was delayed for a while, the two sects would naturally send reinforcements from various parts of the Cloudy River battlefield or from their own sections. Therefore, after so many years, even if the Grand Heaven Alliance knew that this spiritual land was jointly built by the two sects, no one had any thoughts about it. However, at this time today, an uninvited guest descended from the sky and shook the protective formation that enveloped the spiritual land. Chapter 775. A large spirit land that could accommodate 200 to 300 people was not easy to achieve. This was the result of generations of hard work by Sacred Flame sect and Huanyu sect. It was also an important foundation for the two sects in the Cloud River battlefield. In the two sects, not all Cloud River realm cultivators were qualified to enter the spirit land. The number of Cloud River tier cultivators in each generation of the two great sects varied from a few thousand to a few thousand. A single spiritual land was unable to accommodate all of them. Thus, even though the Holy Eve spiritual land had suffered heavy casualties half a year ago, they were now able to replenish their numbers. Liao Yuan, who was originally in charge of this place, died in returning Heaven Valley. The Fire Sect sent a Cloud River Realm 9th Order cultivator named Wang Sun to take over Liao Yuan's position. He and Huan Yu Sect's Tu Guanxiong were in charge of this place. At this moment, the two of them were in the middle of a meeting, and the topic of their discussion was shockingly related to Lu Yi. 4 Cloud River Realm cultivators, the Holy Eve Spirit Land was not too far away from returning Heaven Valley. This was also why the Holy Eve Spirit Land fought for returning Heaven Valley. Returning Heaven Valley was the reason why they changed their minds. Fa Ko Shi's thoughts were one aspect, while returning Heaven Valley's Spirit Land was another aspect. Originally, Liao Yuan thought that killing Lu Yi and taking back the spring spirit of the returning Heaven Valley Spirit Land could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Who would have thought that he would die before his ambition was realized? The cultivators from the 2 sects that he brought out were almost completely wiped out. Chu Yun and Zhou Pei, who were sent by Sacred Flame Sect to kill Lu Yi, spent a lot of time and effort. Not only did they not succeed, but they were also killed by Lu Yi. What's more, Lu Yi, with his Cloud River Realm 8th Order cultivation, was aiming for first place in the Cloud River battle. All of this pointed to one thing. Lu Yi was a great enemy. In the past, they were the ones who went to find trouble with him. Now that Lu Yi had truly grown up, who knew if he would take revenge? If it was an ordinary person, they would not care about a large spirit land. Not to mention the number of people here, even the protective array that enveloped the spirit land could not be broken easily. The Holy Eve Spirit Land could exist for so many years, so they naturally had the confidence. But who was Lu Yi? Not only was he extremely powerful, but his attainments in the art of formations were also unimaginable. Back at the Spirit Stream battlefield, the defensive formations of the various sects and clans in the core region were like nothing to him. The defensive formations of the Holy Eve spiritual land might not have been able to stop him. Once he killed his way into the Spirit Land, who knew how many disciples of the 2 sects would be killed? If such a powerful enemy really came to cause trouble, how would the cultivators of the 2 sects resist? This gave Tu Guanxiong and Wang Bei a headache. Before they could come up with a plan, they heard a deafening explosion. The entire spiritual land seemed to shake violently. What? Tu Guanxiong raised his eyebrows and stood up abruptly. Wang Sun Spirit Sect's Lu heard. In the next moment, a blood-curdling scream entered his ears. It was short and hurried. It was clearly the sound of someone dying. Tu Guanxiong immediately reacted. Immediately after, the shouts outside entered his ears, causing his face to twitch violently. Lu Yi is here. It's Lu Yi. Stop. Meng. In an instant, the originally calm spirit land was like a pot of boiling oil that was sprinkled with salt. Figures rushed out of their respective secluded areas in panic. Tu Guanxiong and Wang Qi also came out in a flash. What they saw shocked them greatly. The protective array of the spirit land was still in operation. A visible spirit energy light screen enveloped the spirit land. Logically speaking, if this light screen was not broken, no one would be able to kill their way into the spirit land. However, at this moment, an unfamiliar figure appeared in the spiritual land. Fiery red spiritual power surged, making him look as if he was burning. He held a pitch-black long saber in his hand, and the long saber was also covered with scorching spiritual power. His figure was like thunder. He ran through the spirit land like lightning. Wherever he passed, there was a rain of blood. Not only that, there were 3 streams of light from Imperial equipment. Under his precise control, they constantly attacked the cultivators in the spirit land. No one could block his saber. No one could even block the power of his Imperial equipment. In a short period of time, the spirit land had lost 20 to 30 people. How can he be so fast? Tu Guanxiong was shocked. He and Wang Jun rushed out when they heard the commotion. How long had it been? Lu Yi had already killed his way in. He didn't even say a word before killing everyone. At this moment, the spirit land of the Holy Word was defenseless. How could the scattered cultivators be a match for Lu Yi? Lu Yi, you're courting death. Wang Sun roared and rushed towards Lu Yi. Senior brother Wang. Tu Guanxiong cried out. He couldn't stop Wang Sun at all. He could only grit his teeth and rush out. Then he saw an extremely terrifying scene. Wang Sun, who had rushed out aggressively, was sent flying by Lu Yi's saber. His spirit energy was in chaos and blood splattered everywhere. If Tu Guanxiong hadn't caught him in time, he would have been in an even worse state. He knew that Lu Yi was very strong now. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to kill Xiao Liang, Chu Yun and Zhou Pei. But knowing was one thing. Before witnessing it with his own eyes, he didn't have a clear understanding of how strong he was. Until now. Wang Sun was also a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator. In the previous Cloud River competition he didn't make it into the top 100, but he was still in the top 300. Among the 9 states Cloud River realm cultivators, he could be considered one of the best. Tu Guanxiong didn't think he was a match for him. But such a top cultivator was sent flying by Lu Yi with a casual slash of his saber. Moreover, he suffered injuries that were neither light nor heavy. How could an 8th Order Cloud River realm cultivator be so strong? Or was it the spirit artifact in his hand? Tu Guanjin's eyesight wasn't bad. He had already noticed that the mountain plate saber in Lu Yi's hand was at the level of a spirit artifact. But even so, Wang Sun shouldn't be so weak. While he was lost in thought, more than 10 people were killed. Fortunately, the cultivators who were in seclusion had already rushed out. They didn't need any instructions. Facing this enemy who had suddenly broken into their spirit land, they all attacked. In a split second, colorful rays of light, wrapped in the energy of spells and weapons, shuttled back and forth in the spiritual land, bustling with noise and excitement. Facing such a concentrated attack, no matter how fast Lu Yi was or how agile he was, he couldn't completely avoid it. The defensive spirit inscriptions on his body continued to shatter and reform, but he was still covered in wounds. He didn't care. Just like when he fought against Xiao Liang, he rushed to where there were the most people. The 3 magic table-level imperial tools played a very big role in this battle. With Lu Ye's generous use of spiritual power, the speed and destructive power of the imperial tools were not something that an ordinary Cloud River tier cultivator could withstand. As the streaks of light shot through the air, blood splattered everywhere and severed limbs flew everywhere. Tu Guanxiong was horrified to find that if this situation continued, regardless of whether Lu Yi died or not, the disciples of the 2 sects in the spirit land would be slaughtered in a short time. Quickly return to the main sects and ask for reinforcements. Tu Guanxiong ordered through gritted teeth. At the same time he and Wang Jun rushed toward Lu Yi. With the strength that Lu Yi had displayed, cultivators below the 9th Order couldn't block a single slash of his saber. Only he and Wang Qi could hold him back for a while. Before the reinforcements of the 2 sects arrived, they had to hold him back no matter what. Tu Guanxiong thought so in his heart, but when he really faced him head-on, he realized that he was too naive. Lu Yi's terrifying strength, wild and violent aura, and indescribable pressure. With just one slash of his saber he was sent flying. Wang Jun was even more miserable. He was injured just now and now one of his arms was cut off. No matter how tenacious he was in so much pain that his face twitched. How could he block such an enemy? When he, a 9th Order Mist Realm cultivator, faced him, it was like a child facing an adult. The extremely long 20 breaths felt like 20 years. The casualties on the side of the Holy Eve's spiritual land had already exceeded 100. Almost at every moment, there were disciples predicting the outcome of the battle. Those who were still alive all had eyes filled with fear and shock, and the might of their attacks had also become timid. Tu Guanxiong deeply understood that when a person was strong to a certain extent, the number of people was meaningless. There were indeed many disciples alive on the spirit land side, but in this short period of time, their courage had been shattered. No one had the courage to face Lu Yi head-on. With such low morale, it was only a matter of time before they were all killed. Although he and Wang Qi joined forces to hold back Lu Yi again, it didn't have any effect. Wang Sun was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He himself was also hit by Lu Yi's saber, and there was a huge wound on his abdomen. This was the result of Lu Yi not deliberately targeting them. The other party seemed to have just casually slashed at them. Disaster. This was definitely the biggest disaster since the establishment of the Holy Word Spirit Land. If they couldn't get through this today, the Holy Eve Spirit Land would no longer exist on the Cloud River battlefield in the future. The 2 sects would also lose their foundation here. If that really happened, it would be a huge blow to the 2 sections. Fortunately, at this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared in the Heaven's Secret Hall where the Heaven's Secret Pillars were placed. More auras were emerging from the Heaven's Secret Hall. Tu Guanxiong's face lit up. He knew that the reinforcements of the 2 sects had arrived. It had only been a few dozen breaths since he sent people back to the main sect to ask for help. The reaction speed of the two sects could be said to be fast. However, just as joy appeared on his face, it turned into boundless panic. Because Lu Yi, who was slaughtering everyone in the spirit land like a god of death, suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of the heaven's secret hall. Then he turned into a fiery red stream of light, wrapped in a violent aura, and directly crashed into the heaven's secret hall. Tu Guanxiong was instantly dumbfounded. Then, a burst of screams and cries came from the heaven's secret hall, as well as the roars of roaring beasts. As the spiritual energy surged, the auras were annihilated like candles being blown out. Tu Guanxiong's eyes trembled violently. He couldn't help but think of a scene that he couldn't accept. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, he felt that it was probably what was happening. Chapter 776. Run. While Tu Guanjin was in a daze, Wang Espio's empty voice came from beside him. He looked at him in a daze. There was no reaction for a moment. Run. Wang Espio shouted with all his strength. Tu Guanxiong came back to his senses and hurriedly shouted, "E!" Many panicked and uneasy cultivators of the spiritual land obeyed the order. They all urged their bodies and fled in all directions. They had lost the courage to fight against Lu Yi. Tu Guanxiong also hurriedly grabbed the seriously injured Wang Qi and urged his spiritual power. He soared into the sky. After flying for a short distance, there was a rumbling sound behind him as if something had collapsed. He looked back and saw the original location of the spiritual land's Tianji Hall. Smoke and dust billowed, and the entire Tianji Hall was in ruins. The Tianji Hall here was built by a group of Cloud River Realm cultivators. It couldn't be compared to the Tianji Hall of the 9 prefectures. It couldn't withstand the aftermath of the battle at all. In the dust, a figure slowly walked out, holding a long blade as black as ink in his hand. Who else could it be but Lu Yi? At this moment, the upper half of Lu Yi's clothes had been torn off, revealing his strong upper body. Large and small wounds were densely packed, making him look like he had been soaked in a pool of blood. He looked like a ruthless wolf, but the fierceness of his aura made people not dare to look directly at him. In the collapsed ruins behind him, broken corpses were laid out one after another. There were at least 20 of them. Tu Guanxiong saw many familiar figures. Boundless grief surged out from his heart. Tu Guanxiong spat out a mouthful of blood. There was only one word echoing in his mind. Invincible. One with such strength, there was no one in the Cloud River realm who could pose any threat to him. And what made him feel happy was that Lu Yi didn't seem to have the intention to kill them all. They were more than 10 miles away. She only glanced at him from afar and then ignored him. Lu Yi indeed didn't want to kill them all. The main reason was that it wasn't too realistic. There were at least 100 cultivators from the 2 sects who had escaped, and they were scattered in all directions. He was alone, how could he chase them all? He might as well ignore them. This time, killing the enemy was secondary to him. Their main target was the Holy Eve's spiritual land itself. Previously, the Fire Prairie Fire had the intention to attack the Huitian Valley and him. Who would have thought that in just a few months, they would bring such a disaster to the Holy Eve's spiritual land? I wonder how he would feel if he knew about this in the underworld. In front of the damaged Tianji Palace, Lu Yimin frowned and pondered. Should he go to the Tianji treasure trove and look for a set of protective treasured clothes? Otherwise, after such a great battle, his clothes were ragged. It was also an eyesore. It was the same when he killed Xiao Liang and the others, and it was the same this time. But after thinking about it carefully, he decided to make a bamboo hat. Treasured clothes were much more important than spirit artifacts that had similar defensive abilities. If the quality was poor, it would be useless to him now. He would rather use high-quality ones. The price was also expensive. If it was damaged, it would be troublesome to repair. The most important point. During the battle, he still had to use his spiritual power to activate the protective power of the treasured clothes. To a weapon cultivator, being untitled was not desirable. Therefore, in the cultivation world of the 9 regions, the statues generally did not wear treasured clothes. It was not that he could not bear to, but for all weapon cultivators, offense was the best defense. Instead of using a portion of his spiritual power to activate the power of the treasured clothes, Lu Yi might as well construct the defensive spirit tattoos. Only Dharma cultivators with strong bodies would wear treasured clothes. But Lu Yi had killed so many Dharma cultivators that the treasured clothes they wore could only provide limited protection. Yi had already begun to clean up the battlefield. She was collecting the spoils of war. Huaxi's voice came from outside the protective array. Open the door. She had been staying outside during the previous battle. After the dust settled, the talisman slowly flew over. However, it was blocked by the intestinal defense array. Lu Yi walked over to her. He looked at the array nodes and threw out array flags. Soon Huaxi was brought in. Hua Hui healed him. Her soft hands caressed Lu Ye's chest. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. The vitality in your body is incredible. The vigorous vitality made Lu Ye's physique stronger, and his recovery ability increased greatly. Therefore, although he looked miserable on the surface, he was actually fine. If there was an enemy who was deceived by this appearance, they would definitely suffer a great loss. With the vitality in his body now, such injuries, even if without Huaxi's help, would not even leave a scar after a day or two of recuperation. Even though it was not her first time experiencing it, Huaqiu was still amazed. Just heal me, don't touch me. Lu Yi was tickled by her touch and could not help but glare at her. Huaxi pursed her lips and chuckled. She did not tease him anymore. Soon the healing was complete. Lu Yi went to the spirit spring and washed his body with its water. Then he changed into a clean set of clothes. Then he took out a small net-like object from his storage space. It was only the size of a palm. Huaxi was suspicious. What is this? She had never seen such a spirit weapon. Spirit capturing net. It's specially used to capture spring spirits, Lu Yi explained. Huaxi understood. So you came prepared. Spirit lands had spirit springs, and there were spring spirits in the spirit springs. Moreover, spring spirits could be captured and plundered. Although Huaxi had not been in the Cloudy River battlefield for long, she still knew these common-sense things. This was also the reason why large spirit lands were born in the Cloudy River battlefield. Those large spirit lands were not naturally large spirit lands. Lu Yi had set out from Huitian Valley and came here directly. He had also brought something like the spirit capturing net. It was obvious that he had come prepared. As he spoke, Lu Yi threw the spirit capturing net into the spirit spring in front of him. However, he was still holding onto a long, thin line. No one in the 9 regions knew how to refine the spirit catching net. It was something unique to the Tianji treasure house. In essence, it was not a particularly powerful spiritual weapon, but it was endowed with special abilities by the Tianji treasure house. And such a spirit capturing net was sold for 5,000 merit points in Tianji treasury. It was definitely not cheap. Lu Yi did not know how deep the spirit spring was. As he held onto the thin line in his hand, he had the illusion that he was fishing. The spirit capturing net kept going deeper and deeper until it finally reached the bottom of the spirit spring. Soon, Lu Yi felt movement and hurriedly pulled the spirit capturing net out. There were no twists and turns. After a while, the spirit capturing net wrapped around a fat, silkworm-like thing appeared in Lu Ye's vision. He had obtained a spring spirit before, so he was not surprised. However, it was Huaxi's first time seeing this thing. She could not help but feel curious. This is a spring spirit. As she spoke, she even poked it with her hand. The spring spirit seemed to shrink its body lazily. Lu Yi carefully examined the spring spirit in front of him. He did not see much difference between this spring spirit and the one he had obtained before. However, he knew that if he found another place to place this spring spirit, it would only be a B-grade spirit land. The Holy Eve spirit land was A-grade, but once the spring spirit was taken out, its quality would drop by 1 grade. As for the range of the spirit land, it would probably not change much. Of course, Lu Yi would not create another B-grade spirit land. The greatest use of the spring spirit in his hand was to bring it back to Return to Heaven Valley and place it in the spirit spring to expand the scale of the Return to Heaven Valley spirit land. As for how much it could expand, that was unknown. The Return to Heaven Valley spirit land was now only a small spirit land. Although the spirit energy of heaven and earth was rich, it could not accommodate many people. In the future, there would definitely be an endless stream of Jade Blood Sect disciples advancing to the Cloud River realm and stepping into the Cloud River battlefield. Leaving the Return to Heaven Valley Spirit Land here would at least allow the Jade Blood Sect disciples to not have to work so hard in the early stages. Lu Yi took out the reward from the hunting ground, the box containing the spring spirit. He placed the spring spirit in the spirit capturing net and kept it carefully. Let's go. Lu Yi called out and summoned his spirit boat again. He carried Huaxi and flew in the direction of the 5 Poisons pool. Behind him was a dilapidated spirit land. The smell of blood filled the air. Who would have thought that such a large spirit land that had been passed down for so many years could be broken through by someone with his own strength? Moreover, he had caused rivers of blood to flow in the spirit land. The cause of this matter was that Fire Prairie had previously led people to attack the Return to Heaven Valley Spirit Land. When the news from the Holy Eve Spirit Land spread, the name, Sect Destroying Yi, once again appeared in the minds of many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. Especially those from the Myriad Demon Ridge who had experienced the Dark Age when Lu Yi ruled the Spirit Stream battlefield, they all had a vague feeling. The scene of such a large battlefield being dominated by a single person was about to appear again. For a time, countless Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were terrified and uneasy. Lu Yi was so vengeful and powerful now. If they really bumped into him in the wild, they would not have a good ending. As a result, many Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who had once found trouble with Lu Yi either returned to their sects in the 9 states or cultivated in seclusion in the Cloud River battlefield. They did not dare to go out easily. Even the atmosphere of the Cloud River battlefield was much more peaceful. At night, the moonlight was hazy and the bonfire danced. There were hidden array formations all around, providing warning and protection. Wuxia and Yi were roasting meat by the bonfire. The sizzling sounds were constantly heard and the alluring aroma spread in all directions. Lu Yi was bare-chested and practicing his saber not far away. Recently, he had read the secret manual of the Tyrant Saber technique and learned something. Unfortunately, it was not suitable for him to enter the Mirage realm to practice in such an environment. He could only cultivate on his own. Suddenly, Lu Yi's movement stopped. It was not that he had learned something, but that the battlefield imprint suddenly had some strange reaction. It did not seem like someone had sent him a message. Lu Yi had never experienced such a reaction before. Out of curiosity, he raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield imprint. He immersed his mind to investigate. A sudden message exploded in his mind and turned into lines of words. Lu Yi focused his eyes and his expression began to change. This message was not sent to him by someone, but appeared in his battlefield imprint out of thin air. Lu Yi did not need to think to know who in this world could have such means. The content of the message inevitably made one's imagination run wild. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.